Chapter 1067. Husband, I've been looking at the Warm Tang Foundation's account for the past 2 days and found some problems. When it was almost noon, Han Yushi took an account book and found Lisa Schwan in West Courtyard. There were only 2 alleys between Yongle Lane and E Lane, where the Warm Tang Foundation's headquarters was located. Now that a group of top students from Yenhuang College had joined the foundation, the pressure on Han Yushi instantly disappeared. She didn't even need to do the accounting. This was because the people from Yenhuang College were very good at accounting. Compared to them, she was a layman. Therefore, Han Yushi didn't need to stay at the Warm Tang Foundation all day. Under normal circumstances, she only needed to go once or twice a day. Moreover, the 2 places were close to each other, so it wouldn't take long for her to go back and forth. "Oh, wife, what problem did you find?" Lisa Schwan, who was leaning against the couch and reading a book, raised his head and asked in surprise. Han Yushi held the account book, bent down, and said, "Husband, look. The Warm Tang Foundation has received nearly 400,000 strings of cash so far, but according to the list Ching K got, the poor people we need to help only add up to about 20,000. If we spend 200 copper coins per household, it'll only add up to 5 or 6,000 strings of cash. Compared to the total amount of donations, this is just a drop in the bucket." Lisa Schwan frowned. He really hadn't considered this problem at the time. Recently, he had let his wife and students manage the charity business under him, so he didn't know much about the 20,000 poor families. After thinking for a while, he muttered to himself in confusion, "What's the matter? Could it be that what I said back then scare the county magistrates?" Previously, when he assigned the task to Li Tai, he said that he had to instruct the county magistrates to draw up a list of the poor as soon as possible. They are not allowed to over-report or under-report. Otherwise, he will definitely settle accounts with them. Lisa Schwan couldn't help but wonder if the county magistrates were following the principle of the less trouble, the better, and only reported the people who were too poor to live. He couldn't be blamed for thinking too much. The main reason was that the population of Chang and City and the 20 or so counties around Chang and City added up to at least 3 to 4 million people. It was impossible to say that there were only 20,000 poor people. Thinking up to this point, Lisa Schwan opened his mouth and said, "Wife, let Ching K bring a few people and negotiate with the various county offices. Order the county magistrates to compile a more detailed list of the poor commoners. As long as they can't afford to buy coal stoves or honeycomb briquettes, they must all be on the list. Not a single one could be left out. These few days, I will personally go to each county to check. If I find any missing people, I will report it to His Majesty. The Ministry of Official Personnel Affairs will also lower the results of their examination this year." The so-called examination was the examination of the achievements of the officials in China's ancient imperial court. It was also called the examination of achievements, examination of merits, etc. The examination of achievements originated from Yaoshan. It was followed by many generations and recorded in many historical books. During the Sui and Tang dynasties, the examination system was already very perfect, especially with the establishment of the imperial examination system to elect officials. The examination system for officials was further perfected. It had a very positive effect on the improvement of the governance of the officials at that time. From the examination system established in the beginning of the Tang Dynasty, civil and military officials and exiled officials above the 9th rank had to go through a small examination every year. Every 4 years, or 3 or 5 years, a big examination would be held. The contents of the examination were 4 virtues and 27 virtues. It could be seen that the examination was very detailed. Lisa Schwan's move could not be said to be not ruthless. He directly grasped the weakness of the local officials. Unless you had no ambition and only wanted to be a small county magistrate forever, you would definitely care about the examination of the imperial court every year. Husband, are you saying that the county magistrates all over the country underreported? Han Yushi blinked and asked. Lisa Schwan grunted and nodded. I estimate that they underreported by at least 3 to 4 times. Of course, this is only one problem. Other than underreporting, I feel that we should slightly increase the aid given to the poor people. We can give them more clothes or food. After all, this autumn harvest has reduced the production of many places. Wife, what do you think? Yes, yes. This concubine thinks so too. Han Yushi nodded excitedly. Lisa Xuan smiled and said, even so, there will definitely be a lot of money left. But that's fine. This year, we will help the poor people around Chang'an City. Next year, we will help the people even further away. Besides, if there is a natural disaster in the future, the money from the Warm Tang Foundation will become life-saving money. Speaking of natural disasters, Li Zishuan's eyes suddenly became deep. He was no longer the young boy who had just arrived in Chang, and without any foundation. His status was higher and his ability was greater. Correspondingly, he could do more things and play a greater role. This natural disaster, I'm definitely going to take care of it. If Li Zishuan had only wanted to help his own family survive the locust plague, then he now wanted to help the entire Tang Empire survive the locust plague. After living in the Tang Dynasty for almost a year, he had completely fallen in love with this era and the people of this era. The Tang Dynasty was a complex that Chinese people could never get around, and Li Zishuan was no exception. It was because of this that he had previously pushed for the imperial court's policy of reducing taxes by raising chickens and the policy of exchanging grain with the South. Yes, then I'll go to the foundation now to make the arrangements. Han Yushi did not know that Li Zishuan's thoughts had drifted far away. She responded and prepared to leave. Li Zishuan quickly pulled her back and said, "Hey, it's already noon. Let's go after lunch. Anyway, Qin Ke is probably not back yet." "Yes, husband, you're right. Then let's have hot pot for lunch. I think father, mother, and grandmother all like it." "Yes, yes. I like it too. I feel like the whole family is very happy eating hot pot together." After saying that, Han Yushi went to the kitchen to ask the cook to prepare. Now, Li Zishuan did not need to do it personally in the Li mansion to eat delicious hot pot. However, the mutton rolls still needed Li Zishuan to cut them personally. This was because there were not many people in Chang, and who were as good at cutting as Li Zishuan. An hour later, in the main hall of the Li mansion, the whole family gathered together to eat hot pot. This time, Cheng Yaojin did not join in the fun, but the two brothers came. "Gosh, what are you guys eating? It smells so good. Xiao Xian, are you there?" Qin Ke, what a coincidence. You're here too?" He didn't know if Li Changxian and Li Tai had made an appointment, but they just so happened to meet at the entrance of the Li Estate's main hall at this time. Chapter 1068. Greetings to Your Highness the Crown Prince, Your Highness King Wei. The people eating hot pot in the room were interrupted by the two people's exclamation. Yi Guozhong, an old madam, Yi had never seen Li Changxian before. After Yi Yuzhu whispered to them, they quickly stood up and bowed to Li Changxian and Li Tai. "No need to be so polite. No need to be so polite. This must be the previous head of the Yi clan of Nanyang, right? This one has heard of you before." Yi Guozhong was flattered and said, "To be known by Your Highness the Crown Prince, this old man is honored." Li Changxian quickly waved his hand and said with a smile, "Hee, this one and the Marquis of Yong and are good friends, so head you need not be so polite. Eat." Everyone continued to eat. Li Tai could finally get a word in. He licked his lips and said with a greedy expression, "Yamacho, what is this eating method? It looks so satisfying." If it wasn't for Li Changxian being here, Li Tai would have already sat down and started eating without a care for his image. However, in this situation, he had to be reserved and restrain himself. Otherwise, Li Changxian, as the eldest brother, would definitely scold him. Li Zishuan glanced at the little fatty who was about to drool and said, "Qin Ke, if you haven't eaten lunch, then come and eat with us." "Hee, haven't eaten. Then I won't be polite. Xiao He, I'll have to trouble you to bring me a pair of chopsticks." As expected, Li Tai unceremoniously moved a stool and sat next to Li Zishuan. For the sake of food, this guy's tone of speaking to Xiao, he was 3 times more polite. Lonner gave a dissatisfied humph because Li Tai had pushed her away from Li Zixuan. While you're at it, help him get a bowl of dipping sauce. Li Zixuan added from behind. If there was no dipping sauce, this unlucky child probably wouldn't be able to take a bite. Then he remembered that Li Changxian was still standing to the side. So he turned his head and asked, Changxian, have you eaten lunch? If not, why don't we eat together? In this room, he was the only one who dared to invite Li Changxian, the crown prince, to eat at the same table. The main reason was that he came from a modern era and didn't have much concept of hierarchy in his bones. Furthermore, he had always treated Li Changxian and Li Tai as friends. I'll eat. Oh, I haven't eaten yet. Let's eat together then. Li Tai was just about to say eat when he saw Li Tai dip some bean sprouts into the pot and dip them in Lan Er's dipping sauce bowl. Before Lan Er could react, Li Changxian quickly put them into his mouth. Li Changxian couldn't help but feel the gluttony in his stomach, so he quickly corrected himself. Good. Then, Xiao He, go and help me get 2 bowls of dipping sauce and 2 sets of chopsticks. Li Zixuan nodded and instructed Xiao He. Xiao He took the order and left. At this time, Lan Er screamed, Ah! Smelly brother Qin Ke, you stole Lan Er's dipping sauce. Yi Guozhong was so scared that he almost couldn't hold his chopsticks. Although Li Tai was Li Zixuan's student, he was still the king of Wei. How dare a little girl talk to him like that? Who knew that Li Tai's face didn't show any anger at all? Instead, he didn't feel ashamed and instead felt proud. With a shameless attitude, he said, Ha ha. At most, I'll let Lan Er dip it back later. Li Tai was very happy to be mischievous. Lan Er pouted and said, Brother Qin Ke is so shameless. The sensible old lady quickly held Lan Er's hand and said, Come. Lan Er, be good. Grandmother still has more dipping sauce here. Use grandmother's. No, grandmother, you eat. Lan Er has more here. Lan Er very sensibly refused. Li Changxian looked at Li Tai and shook his head helplessly. He didn't criticize him because he felt that although the current Li Tai was a little mischievous, he was more sunny than before. In the past, Li Tai would give people a cold and gloomy feeling. After a while, Xiao He brought 2 bowls of dipping sauce and 2 pairs of chopsticks. The 2 brothers, Li Tai and Li Changxian, started to eat without holding back. Although they had never eaten hot pot before, they imitated Li Zixuan's family and ate with relish. Oh, is this mutton? Why is it so delicious? I can't feel the smell at all. Wow, it's really mutton. Even the imperial chefs in the palace can't compare to this knife skill, right? When did your cook become so good, Yamacho? Everyone in the Li family liked to eat meat. The 2 brothers immediately launched an attack on the mutton. After tasting the deliciousness of the hot pot mutton, the 2 of them immediately exclaimed. Li Zixuan glanced at the 2 brothers and said lightly, What cook? I cut this myself. You 2 are in for a treat today. Li Tai couldn't help but give a thumbs up of his left hand and said, Yes. Yamacho is Yamacho. You're good at everything. Little Fatty didn't stop when he was flattering. His chopsticks were constantly moving back and forth between the mutton plate and the hot pot plate, as if he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to eat it if he was too slow. After tasting it, Li Changxian didn't crave it as much. He wasn't a person who particularly valued good food, but he still found the way the family ate around a stove very interesting. After a while, he ate a lot. This meal was undoubtedly the most special meal Li Changxian had eaten in the past 10 years. In the past, when he was in the Eastern Palace, he ate most of the time alone. Sometimes he would eat with Li Er and Emperor Zhangsun, but at that time, the family was sitting upright and eating in a proper manner. There was a lot less flavor. In Li Zixuan's house, he truly felt the taste of home. Everything was so warm and harmonious. Little Xian, can you teach me how to make this hot pot? I want to bring it back and let Imperial Father and Imperial Mother try it. After the meal, Li Changxian leaned comfortably on the armchair and asked directly. He had a fantasy in his heart. He imagined that his Imperial Father, Imperial Mother, Imperial Brother, Imperial Sister, and his Imperial Grandfather could also eat hot pot together like Li Zixuan's family. Li Zixuan didn't plan to use the hot pot secret to earn money. He smiled and replied, Why not? Changxian, when you return to the palace, Send a chef over. My kitchen maid will teach him. As for this mutton roll that is as thin as a cicada's wing, you have to find someone with good knife skills. In my opinion, Steward Zhao is definitely up to the task. The dignified head eunuch, a martial arts expert in the Grandmaster realm, was arranged by Li Zishuan to be a chef. If Zhao Song knew, he would probably cry, but have no tears. Li Chengxian didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he touched his nose and said, "This we'll talk about it later. Steward Zhao is already very tired from being in charge of my imperial father's safety. How can I trouble him for such a small matter?" That's not right. Yamacho, why is your house so warm? Li Tai, who was lying on the armchair picking his teeth, seemed to have realized something was wrong and asked in surprise. Chapter 1069. Previously, when Li Tai and Li Chengxian entered the house, Li Zishuan and his family were sitting around a coal stove and eating hot pot. Although the two brothers felt that the house was very warm, they only thought that it was because there was a stove in the house. Recently, coal stoves and honeycomb briquettes had become very popular. They had seen it before, so they weren't very surprised. However, after the coal stove was removed, the temperature in the house didn't drop at all. It was still as warm as before. This made Li Tai feel strange. That's right. Xiaoxian, is there a heater somewhere in your house? Why is it so warm? After Li Tai's reminder, Li Chengxian also reacted. He sat up straight and asked, "Hee, there isn't a heater in this house. Qingke, you've taken chemistry class before. You should know that a heater can poison people, right?" Li Zishuan shook his head and laughed. Li Tai rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. He nodded and said, "There is such a saying. However, if there isn't a heater in this house, why is it so warm? Yamacho, don't keep us in suspense." Li Chengxian nodded in agreement. He also looked at Li Zishuan curiously. Li Zishuan pointed at the row of heaters behind Li Tai and said, "There, go and touch that piece of metal and you'll know why." When Li Tai heard this, he couldn't help but retract his hand. "You want me to touch a cold piece of metal in the middle of winter? Isn't that asking for my life? I'm very afraid of the cold." Li Chengxian saw Li Zishuan's solemn vow and felt that Li Zishuan wouldn't deliberately trick him. He stood up and took 2 steps forward. Then, he reached out to the metal heaters. The expected cold didn't come. Instead, it was a very comfortable warmth. This warmth was even a little hot. What's going on? Not only is this lump of metal not cold, but it's also hot. This is really strange. Even though Li Chengxian was mentally prepared, he was still very surprised at this moment. This clearly went against common sense. Let me try. Hearing this, Li Tai immediately perked up. The little fatty walked to Li Chengxian's side and placed his white and fleshy palm against the radiator. Sure enough, what he felt was warmth and not coldness. His eyes lit up and he said excitedly, "Yamacho, I understand. It's because of this iron lump that your room is as warm as spring, right?" Lana rolled her eyes and said disdainfully, "Tsk, what a lump of iron. This thing is called a radiator. There's a heater in it, so of course the house will be warm." Radiator? Li Tai was stunned. He didn't have time to fight back against Lan Er's disdain. He turned to Li Zishuan and said, "Yamacho, do you have any extra radiators? I want to install this in the imperial residence as well." Li Chengxian also nodded vigorously and pleaded, "Yes. Little Xian, this radiator is really useful. Do you have any more? I'll take it back and install it in the palace as well." During this winter, father, mother, and Changle all suffer. I was planning to raise money for father and mother to repair the palace. Now it seems that this radiator is enough. Li Zishuan originally made this radiator for his family to enjoy. He gave it to Li Gang out of respect for the old man's scholarly character. He also planned to prepare another set for the Qin family. He didn't expect that before he had time to prepare, the two brothers, Li Tai and Li Chengxian, came to ask for it. However, he could not give it to them because he wasn't worried about whether Li Chengxian would suffer or not. He, who had transmigrated from the modern world, knew that Li Chengxian would sit on the throne for many, many years. However, it was different for Zhang Sun and Changle. These two extremely virtuous women also contributed a lot to the prosperity of the Tang dynasty. According to history, they couldn't escape the fate of death. According to historical records, one of them died in the 10th year of Jingguan at the age of 36. The other died in the 17th year of Jingguan at the age of 23. Li Zixuan admired Empress Zhangsun and Princess Chang'e very much. He didn't want these two women to die early from illness. Empress Zhangsun's influence on Li Changqian didn't need to be mentioned. Since ancient times, when a country was about to prosper, there would be a wise ruler and a virtuous empress. Empress Zhangsun protected righteous subjects and lived up to Guanju's beauty. As for Li Lizzie, as the pearl in the emperor's palm, she didn't take advantage of her parents' doting to become arrogant. After marriage, she was filial and respectful. When the court officials couldn't persuade her father to cede land to meritorious subjects, she stood out to help at the crucial moment and put an end to the hidden danger of the Tang dynasty's provinces being divided. In Li Zixuan's view, these two women died because of their illness. They were the two biggest regrets of Jingguan's golden age. From a modern era to the Tang dynasty, Li Zixuan saw the two women he admired. One treated him like an elder, while the other was like his own little sister. He didn't want these two women to die from the bottom of his heart. Previously, he had asked Han Yushi to teach Chang'e Tai Chi. He didn't know if this little girl persevered every day. In fact, even if she persevered every day, Li Zixuan didn't have the confidence to cure Chang'e's illness through Tai Chi. Illness was similar to asthma. It was a stubborn disease that couldn't be cured in modern society. All Li Zixuan could do was try his best to reduce the frequency of Chang'e and Zhangsun's illness. Winter was the peak season for asthma. The cold air irritated the respiratory tract mucosa and could easily cause asthma. Therefore, the imperial palace also needed heating. Changxian, this radiator needs to be customized with the heating pipe, and the heating pipe needs to be planned according to the specific size of the building. You can install heating in the palace, but you have to provide Faubert with some size data. Otherwise, if the heating is not suitable, it will easily cause problems. Li Zixuan said. This was considered to be an agreement to Li Changxian and Li Tai's request for heating. However, unlike modern advanced production processes and technology, the heating pipe made by the workshop was custom-made and formed in one piece. With the workshop's current technology, it was still a little troublesome to make the modern air valve that connected the pipes. Therefore, if Li Changxian and Li Tai wanted to install heating, it had to be custom-made. This was also one of the reasons why Li Zixuan didn't plan to use heating to make money. This was because the heating technology he made was relatively backward and not suitable for mass production. It wouldn't be too late to promote the heating business when the technology matured in the future. Li Changxian was stunned. He said awkwardly, "If that's the case, I'll go back to the palace and ask Father." The architectural drawings of the imperial palace were confidential. How could they be easily leaked to outsiders? Li Tai laughed and said, "Haha, then I'll go talk to Faubert in the afternoon and ask him to build a heating for me first." This guy didn't have so many scruples. As long as he could enjoy it, it was fine. Chapter 1070. Yongle Lane, Li Manor's main hall. After agreeing to Li Changxian and Li Tai's request to install a heater, Li Zixuan thought for a while and said, "Maybe we can do this." Changxian sent a craftsman to the workshop to find Faubert. Faubert will teach him the specific production and installation methods of the heater. Then, the craftsman will take the lead to install the heater in the palace. Because Li Zixuan did not plan to do a heater business, he did not mind teaching the crudest and most primitive heating method to Li Er's people. Li Changxian's eyes lit up. He was very touched and said, "Thank you. But don't worry, Xiaoxian. Even if the craftsman knows the method to make the heater, he won't leak it." This child was quite loyal. He knew that he could not ruin Li Zixuan's business because of his own selfish desires. Li Zixuan smiled carelessly. Then, he looked at Li Tai and said, "Qingke, did you come to find me at noon?" Li Tai was stunned. It took him a while to remember the purpose of his visit. He quickly sat up and said to Li Zixuan, "Yes, yes, yes." There's indeed something. Yamacho, after so many days of running around, the students of our academy have almost run to all the families on the list given by the local government. But when everyone was delivering the coal stoves, they found that many people who were not on the list were having a hard time. And I heard from the people of the 3rd Brigade that the Foundation still has a lot of money left. Yamacho, can you expand the range of the coal stoves? Li Zishuan could not help but think that it was a coincidence. He had just talked to Han Yushi about this in the morning, and this little fatty had come at noon for the same thing. However, the little fatty had really profited from this trip. He had gotten a hot pot and a heater. Thinking of this, he said, I already know about this. I already know about this matter. I think that the officials of the various prefectures and counties didn't want to be meddlesome, so they only put the names of those whose families were especially poor on the list. I plan to ask you to bring some students to the county yamen and order them to do a thorough check. If there are any missing students, I will report it to His Majesty and ask the Ministry of Official Personnel Affairs to lower their exam this year. Li Tai waved his fist and said with an indignant look, Hey, I was wondering what was going on. It turned out that some officials were not doing their jobs. Yamacho, wait for me. I will look for them. Li Zishuan hurriedly said, Hey, stand. Wait. Li Tai halted in his tracks upon hearing this. Li Zishuan continued, It was originally a good deed to accumulate virtue and do good deeds. Chinke, don't use your status to ruin it. That won't happen. Apart from this, there is one more thing. Chinke, you said earlier that the Foundation has a lot of money left in its account. So I plan to send some clothes and food to the poor people in the future in addition to coal stoves and honeycomb briquettes to help them through the winter. Li Tai immediately laughed when he heard this. That's good. Yamacho, you don't know, but there were many students who saw how pitiful those poor people were, so they gave some money to those people. These few days, not only did the students put in effort, but they also gave money. Li Zishuan couldn't help but praised the first batch of students from Yanhuang College. Their character was really not bad. Tell the students to report all the money they gave to the people these few days. Let the 3rd Brigade do the tabulation. When this matter is over, I will return all the money to them. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said generously, That's good. Yamacho, I'll go back to the Foundation first. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Li Tai said his goodbyes and left. Li Zishuan looked at Li Chengxian. Li Chengxian looked embarrassed and said, If it wasn't for Chinke, I would have forgotten that I came here today to talk to you about something. Li Zishuan smiled and said, What is it? Li Chengxian said slowly, Recently, when I was in the palace, I often heard news of Yanhuang College's students running around to help the needy. Father is usually very busy and may not have the time to pay attention to these things. But as the heir to the throne, he also wants to do something for this matter. Xiaoxian, do you still need manpower? The East Palace has 100 guards, 30 eunuchs, and more than 50 carriages at your disposal. He didn't come here to freeload today. This was his main purpose for coming to the Li family. However, he was attracted by the hot pot and the heater and forgot his purpose. Li Chengxian had already put it this way. How could Li Zishuan still have any reason to disagree? He smiled and said, Sure. It just so happens that the tasks on the shoulders of the students will become heavier. Chengxian, the people in your East Palace will be assigned to Chinke later. One more person meant one more force. Moreover, the guards in the East Palace could be considered martial arts experts. One guard was almost equivalent to 3 students. After the warm people expanded, the Foundation just happened to be lacking manpower. With the help of the East Palace, they would be able to complete the warm winter operation before the end of the year. Good. I'll take my leave first. Li Chengxian stood up and cupped his hands. He originally came here to send people off, but in the end, it could be said that he gained a lot. Not only did he get the recipe for the hot pot, but he also got the heater. This trip was really worth it. After Li Chengxian left, Imo Zhong came to inform him that Sun Simiao was looking for him. Li Zishuan could only sit in the carriage and go to Yinshan, selling sesame cakes, fragrant and crispy sesame cakes. 3 copper coins for one, 3 copper coins for one. Just as the carriage left Yongle Lane, Li Zixuan heard the voice of an old woman hawking outside the carriage window. He couldn't help but be startled. Logically speaking, this kind of wandering peddler rarely came out in winter. Moreover, it was selling sesame cakes. That was even more impossible. Sesame cakes cooled quickly in winter. In this era, there was no cheap way to keep them warm. Who would buy them? This sesame cake was baked with sesame and flour. Among them, the Tang Dynasty's Chong and Fuha Square's production was more outstanding. The poet Bai Ji once wrote, "Sesame cakes imitate the capital in every aspect, crispy and fragrant from the oven." Later on, it gradually evolved into sesame cakes. Thinking of this, Li Zixuan quickly asked San Bao to stop the carriage. He jumped down from the carriage and curiously looked in the direction of the old woman hawking sesame cakes. The scene in front of him immediately stunned Li Zixuan. He saw that the old woman was pushing a wooden cart. On the cart was a coal stove. On the stove was an iron pot that emitted waves of steam and fragrance. In front of her was a line of people who came to buy sesame cakes. Damn, wasn't this similar to those peddlers in the future who pushed a cart on the street and sold roasted sweet potatoes from the stove on the cart to passers-by? In the end, it was because honeycomb coal had replaced charcoal and became a more economical fuel. If it wasn't for this old woman wouldn't be pushing a cart out to sell sesame cakes. Otherwise, she would have to spend a day burning charcoal to pay for it. Hey, this young master has inadvertently opened up a new business for the people. Li Zixuan thought proudly in his heart. Chapter 1071. Young Master, here's the sesame cake you wanted. On the streets of Yongle Lane, Li Zixuan saw that there was more than one vendor by the roadside. On a whim, he asked San Bao to buy him a sesame cake. Since he hadn't eaten his fill in the afternoon, he wanted to try the sesame cake from the Tang Dynasty. More than half of the mutton from lunch went into Li Tai's stomach. Li Zixuan took the sesame cake from San Bao. It was slightly hot to the touch. He opened it and took a sniff. He smelled the aroma of roasted flour and sesame. He smiled and said to San Bao, "All right, let's go to Yinshan." After that, he boarded the horse carriage and was ready to enjoy the authentic Tang Dynasty sesame cake in the carriage. "All right, young master," San Bao replied. Soon, the horse carriage started moving again. Most of the roads from Chong and to Yunshan were paved with cement. The road was wide and flat. The horse carriage sped along and arrived at Yunshan in less than half an hour. Li Zixuan had already finished his sesame cake. He got off the horse carriage and walked towards the third courtyard where Sun Simiao was staying. The courtyard was very lively. Other than Hu Jing, Professor Wang, Professor Qin, and their 2 disciples were all there. "Yo, Yamacho is here." In the courtyard, Professor Wang, Professor Qin, and the rest greeted Li Zixuan when they saw him. It's quite lively here today." Li Zixuan smiled and greeted everyone. He then looked at Sun Simiao and asked, "Taoist Master Sun, I heard that you were looking for me?" Sun Simiao stroked his beard and smiled. "Yes, there is. Xiao Xian, take a seat first." Li Zixuan found a stool and sat down. Sun Simiao continued, "Xiao Xian, recently, the students of Yinhuang College went down the mountain to help those in need. I've heard about it. I'm very glad that Taoism has a junior like you." Li Zixuan was stunned. Sun Simiao's words meant that he thought that he was doing so much to increase the reputation of the Tao sect. However, the actual situation was not like that. He had asked his students to do this because he could not stand the sight of so many poor people around him. In addition, it was also convenient for his students to gain experience. He had never thought of increasing the reputation of Taoism. Although he was also a member of the Tao sect and had a good impression of the Tao sect, those were 2 different things. When he was doing this, he did not have such thoughts. "Sun, I just want to help the poor people around me. This has nothing to do with factions." No matter. Being compassionate to others and forgiving to others. You have done this after all. Sun Simiao waved his hand with a smile and said, "Little Xian, you're leading your students to do good deeds at the foot of the mountain, but I can't always be idle on the mountain. She actually told me an idea yesterday. I think it's not bad, so I want to share it with you. Li Zishuan's eyes flashed. He smiled and said, Priest Sun, you want to go down the mountain to provide free medical treatment for the poor people, right? Actually, free medical treatment had a long history. At the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty, there was a plague epidemic in Changsha. The governor of Changsha, Zhang Zhongjing, who was also known as the medical sage by later generations, personally sat in the court and provided free medical treatment for the people. Since then, doctors in ancient times were known as sitting in the court when treating patients. Sun Simiao nodded with a smile and said, Haha, that's right. I have the same idea. Little Xian, what do you think? Yamacho, now that the academy is on holiday and we have nothing important to do at the academy, we would also like to provide free medical treatment with Dr. Sun. Just treat it as giving our 2 students a chance to gain experience. Professor Qin interrupted at this time. Li Zishuan frowned and thought for a moment, then nodded and said, No problem. Pre-Sun, Professor Wang, Professor Qin, if you want to go down the mountain to provide free medical treatment for the people, I support. When the time comes, all the medical expenses will be covered by the Warm Tang Foundation. Also, the Academy's guards can go down the mountain with you, so you can take care of each other when the time comes. These people were all old antiques in the Academy. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were the living treasures of the Tang Empire. Li Zishuan was not at ease with them going down the mountain to provide free medical treatment. What if a few unruly pestered them endlessly and hurt them? Since this is little Xian's good intentions, then this poor Taoist will not decline. I plan to follow Brother Qin, Brother Wang, and the others to the 22 surrounding provinces and counties. I will also stay near the county government of each province and county for a day, so I hope that little Xian can help me spread this news in advance on Tang Daily, so that the poor people who need medical treatment will not miss it. This last sentence was Sun Simiao's main purpose. He did not look for Li Zishuan for the medical expenses. He thought back to when he was wandering the world alone, with no one to sponsor him with medicinal herbs. Didn't he save so many poor people by himself? The main reason was that he now had 2 Xinglin experts by his side to help him. He wanted to save as many poor people as he could, so he needed Li Zishuan to help him advertise on Tang Daily. If not for this, he would have already brought Hu Jing down the mountain to provide free medical treatment. Li Zishuan smiled and said, All right, Priest Sun, tell me about your free medical treatment itinerary in a while. Then I will ask Mr. Ma to put it in the most prominent position on Tang Daily. As for the county yamen, I'll send someone to contact them. In my opinion, you might as well do a volunteer clinic in the county yamen. It's winter, and it's not a good idea to do a volunteer clinic on the streets. Sun Simiao waved his hands and said, No need, no need. We can't delay the local government from handling the case. I have been living in the open all these years, and I am used to it. Li Zishuan said, How can you do that? It is almost the new year, and the local government probably won't have any cases. Besides, didn't the medical sage do the same back then? It even became a story that was passed down from generation to generation. It's settled then. In Li Zishuan's opinion, if a godlike figure like Sun Simiao went to the counties to provide free medical treatment for the people, the county officials would be very happy, because in their areas of jurisdiction, fewer people would die of illness. And for them, their political achievements would be much better. After settling this matter, Li Zishuan went down the mountain directly and went to the workshop to find Ma Zhou. Since he had promised Sun Simiao, he had to help advertise this free medical treatment in the newspaper. When he arrived at the workshop, Li Zishuan found Ma Zhou in the editorial department of Tang Daily and told him about Sun Simiao's free medical treatment plan in detail. After hearing it, Ma Zhou agreed. In the end, Ma Zhou said with a smile, Marquis, something interesting has happened at Tang Daily recently. What is it? Li Zishuan asked curiously. 2 days ago, the authors of Zhang Xiaohua's biography of a cultivator and The Long Way to Immortality came to find me. They said that they wanted to donate all the money they received this month and next month to the Nuan Tang Foundation. From this, you can see how influential the Nuan Tang Foundation is now. Chapter 1072. Oh, there's such a thing? Inside the Tang Daily editorial department, Li Zixuan was a little surprised after hearing Ma Zhou's words. He only knew that the Warm Tang Foundation's charity storm had spread to the palace, to the homes of the civil and military officials, to the private merchants, and to the common people, but he didn't expect it to spread to the novel circle. This indeed showed that the Warm Tang Foundation's charity effect was very impressive. However, the authors of Zhang Xiaohua's biography of a cultivator and The Long Journey to Immortality, Chen Tianhua and Liao Feiqin, were both students of Yanwang College. It was very likely that they had been influenced by helping the poor in various provinces and counties, so they donated money to charity. This didn't really explain the problem. Outsiders might not know that Chen Tianhua and Liao Feiqin were the authors of these two novels, but how could Li Zixuan and Ma Zhou, the two most powerful people in the Tang Daily editorial department, not know? Li Zixuan wouldn't criticize his students for writing novels while attending school to earn money, as long as it didn't affect their studies. Moreover, he had also written novels when he was in university in his previous life, but it was a flop. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had to worry about finding a job when he graduated. Tomorrow, put a paragraph at the top of Tang Daily, Dahua, Jianghu, to publicize Chen Tianhua and Liao Feiqin's charity work. Tell all the authors that if anyone is willing to donate their rewards like them, the Tang Daily will not take any commission and will donate the full amount. According to the rules, the editorial department will take a 50% commission for the rewards received by the authors. Li Zixuan thought for a while and said. Ma Zhou smiled and replied, "Yes." Marquis. Li Zixuan chatted with Ma Zhou for a while. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly remembered something and said, "By the way, Brother Ma, the headline on Tang Daily today is very good. Brother Ma, you have a deep chest and a poetic mind. No wonder Mr. Li Gang has been praising you." Ma Zhou was stunned. Then he waved his hand and said modestly, "Marquis is overpraising. It's not that Ma Zhou wrote it well, but that Marquis said it well." Ma Zhou was enlightened and benefited a lot from those two sentences. Establish your heart for the heavens and earth. Establish your life for the people. "Huh, Brother Ma, you're too modest. I can't write that splendid essay of yours." Li Zixuan smiled and walked 2 steps with his hands behind his back. Suddenly, he stopped and said, "Actually, there are 2 more sentences after these 2 sentences." "Oh, please enlighten me, Marquis." Ma Zhou's eyes lit up, like a hungry man seeing a peerless beauty. He stared at Li Zixuan with burning eyes. Li Zixuan sighed and said softly, "The complete 4 sentences should be, establish your heart for the heavens and earth, establish your life for the people, inherit the lost knowledge for the past saints, and establish peace for all ages." After that, he shook his head and walked out of the door, leaving Ma Zhou in a daze. Mr. Wang, why are you here?" After leaving the Tang Daily editorial department building, Li Zixuan inadvertently caught a glimpse of a familiar figure coming out of the ironworks yard in the west. He couldn't help but be curious. He chased after him and found that it was Wang Ji. He couldn't help but ask, "Oh, so it's Yamacho." Wang Ji's hair was disheveled and his beard was unshaven. He looked like a prisoner who had just been released from prison. His appearance was completely different from the glorious image that a teacher of the academy should have. When he saw that the person who called him was Li Zixuan, he hurriedly tidied up his messy hair and said, "Yamacho, I heard that a big blast furnace was built in the workshop, but I was too busy with the academy's affairs to take a look. Later, when the students finished their exams, they were dragged down the mountain by you, Yamacho, to help the needy. I want to take a look and verify some of the chemical reactions recorded in the textbook chemistry." Li Zixuan was speechless. No wonder it was not easy to meet Wang Ji in the academy recently. It turned out that this old man came to the workshop. Looking at his sloppy appearance, he probably ate, drank, and slept in the workshop. How much hatred did he have to work so hard? "I'm just verifying some chemical reactions." "Mr. Wang, you don't have to be like this." Li Zixuan pretended to be puzzled. Wang Ji's expression was awkward. He laughed and said, "Ahem. I've been a little busy recently and forgot to clean up. Sorry for my rudeness. But with Yamacho's current state, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover like the rest of the world, right? Moreover, compared to those people who look good on the outside but are rotten on the inside, I'm much better. Li Zixuan cursed in his heart. This old man had been in the academy for so long. When did he become a little shameless? Was he influenced by the bearded man? Oh, that's right. Yamacho, I've recently discovered something new. Come take a look. Suddenly, Wang Ji patted his head and said excitedly. Li Zixuan was just about to ask what it was when old Wang pulled him by the arm and walked quickly to the workshop's office building. After going up to the third floor, they turned left and right again. The two of them walked to the door of a room. Wang Ji said as he opened the door, "This is a room that I asked Manager Fu to specially use to test some chemical reactions. Recently, according to the teaching materials, I found someone to help me burn some tools. I've been doing experiments in this room for the past few days." While they were talking, the door had already opened. Li Zixuan almost thought that he had transmigrated back to the modern world because the table in the room was filled with glass containers of various shapes, such as distillation bottles, beakers, measuring cylinders, test tubes, and so on. Also, Li Zixuan even saw an alcohol lamp. This old man really knows how to make a mess. At this moment, Li Zixuan really admired Wang Ji. When he was writing the Academy's chemistry teaching materials, he only drew some rough outlines of the experimental equipment and briefly introduced the principles of some chemical reactions. He didn't expect the students to understand all the chemical reactions in the book. He felt that it would be good enough if the students could understand the nature of matter through the chemistry class. In other words, the chemistry teaching materials he wrote were incomplete. Due to the lack of experimental materials and equipment, the whole course lacked a lot of experimental evidence. Most of the time, it was only limited to theoretical explanations. Of course, such a chemistry couldn't be considered complete. But even if it was incomplete, he still wanted to introduce this course. He wanted to present the theory first and leave some of the specific things in it for future generations to verify when the conditions were right. For example, the periodic table of the elements that he proposed. At this time, the students might not think much of it, but in a few decades or 200 or 300 years later, people would definitely be amazed by the periodic table of the elements. He wanted to introduce the knowledge of chemistry to the Tang Dynasty and be a prophet in this field. Chapter 1073. Ahem. Yamacho, this room is a bit messy, please don't mind it. But everything that should be here is here. Take a look. This is the beaker that you mentioned in the chemistry textbook. This is the measuring cylinder. This is... In a room in the workshop's office building, Wang Ji introduced the experimental equipment in the room to Li Zixuan with great familiarity. In fact, there was no need for him to introduce them. Li Zixuan knew better than anyone else. If one paid close attention to Wang Ji's tone, one would notice that when it came to chemistry, his attitude towards Li Zixuan became more respectful. This was because in the field of knowledge, the one who was more knowledgeable was the teacher. Li Zixuan was better than him in this field, and that was a fact. Very good. I can see that Mr. Wang has been working hard these days. Li Zixuan looked at the experimental equipment in the room and nodded in admiration. Wang Ji heard this and immediately grinned. In the end, it's all thanks to your workshop, Yamacho. Without the help of those craftsmen, no matter how capable I am, I wouldn't be able to create so many things in such a short period of time. He was right. Li Zixuan was definitely the one who contributed the most. If he hadn't invented the method of burning color glaze, Wang Ji wouldn't have been able to make any of the experimental instruments in front of him. Mr. Wang is too humble. Li Zixuan laughed and then asked, "Mr. Wang, have you been living in this room for the past few days?" This was because he saw a very simple wooden bed in the corner of the room. When he thought about how this old man in front of him was doing experiments day and night in this cold weather, Li Zixuan felt a little sad. A scientific worker shouldn't be treated like this. But this was Wang Ji's usual style. When Yinhuang College was first established and recruited the first batch of teachers, Wang Ji wanted to win the bet with Yin Silu and prove that he was worthy of the high salary of the college and the position of the head of the chemistry department. He crazily studied the chemistry textbook day and night for nearly a month and finally won the bet with full marks and proved his ability. After the exam, the old man fell into a coma for a day and a night. This showed that this was a stubborn old man, but at the same time, a very capable old man. This old man was sometimes very cruel to himself. Ugh, this is fine, as long as there's a place to lie down. It doesn't matter where I sleep. Yamacho, you don't have to worry about me. Wang Ji only wanted to show Li Zixuan his research results. He didn't have time to care about his living situation. Li Zixuan said decisively, no, the body is the body. The body, the capital, Mr. Wang. If you continue like this, you'll definitely fall sick in a few days. I'll ask Faubert to send someone to install a heater in your room. Heater? What's a heater? Wang Ji, who was only focused on various chemical equations, obviously didn't notice that the workshop had recently produced several heaters, so he asked curiously. Let's not talk about this first, Mr. Wang. You'll understand when it's installed. Li Zixuan waved his hand and then got to the point. Mr. Wang, just now outside, you said that you recently discovered something new. What is it that made you so happy? Wang Ji immediately became spirited. He quickly walked to the experiment table and took a small glass bottle with a label. There was still half a bottle of colorless liquid in it. Then he smiled and took the glass bottle in front of Li Zixuan and said, Yamacho, this is it. What's this? Li Zixuan took it with one hand and asked subconsciously. But before he finished, he had already seen the H2SO4 label on the bottle. The doubt on his face suddenly turned into surprise. Sulfuric acid? Wang Ji nodded proudly and stroked his beard. Yes, that's right. It's sulfuric acid. Geezer Wang had painstakingly studied the chemistry textbook, so Li Zixuan wasn't surprised at all that the old man could say the name sulfuric acid. But now Wang Ji actually said that he had made sulfuric acid, which made Li Zixuan feel very incredulous. Mr. Wang, how did you make sulfuric acid? The foundation of the modern chemical industry was 3 acids and 2 bases. It could be said that without 3 acids and 2 bases, there would be no modern chemical industry. And sulfuric acid was one of the important components of 3 acids and 2 bases. If Wang Ji really made sulfuric acid, it would be awesome. The 3 acids were sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acid, and nitric acid. The 2 bases were sodium hydroxide and sodium carbonate. Wang Ji took out a small box from the drawer and a small paper bag from the wooden box. When the paper bag was opened, a small pinch of green powdery substance was revealed. Wang Ji smiled and said, Yamacho, this is it. This old man placed the green vitriol on a flame to heat it up and discovered that it would produce a kind of gas. Furthermore, this gas is very soluble in water. After this old man used the chemical equation to calculate, this solution is very likely sulfuric acid. Green alum. Isn't this thing a water crystal of ferrous sulfate? Li Zixuan was stunned. He suddenly remembered that according to the chemistry books in his previous life, you can indeed make dilute sulfuric acid by burning green alum. The chemical equation was 2FeSO4 7H2O equals high temperature Fe2O3 plus SO2 plus SO3 plus 14H2O. Sulfur trioxide, dissolved in water, is dilute sulfuric acid. But where did Wang Ji get the green alum? Mr. Wang. With doubts in his heart, Li Zixuan was just about to ask where Wang Ji got the green alum from. Suddenly, the memories of his previous life made him realize that green alum was a kind of Chinese medicine in ancient times. Wang Ji must have gotten it from Sun Simiao. Tang Ben Xiao and Compendium of Materia Medica both had records of green alum's medicinal properties. It could be used to treat typhoid, malaria, and other diseases. Yamacho, you guessed right. This green alum was borrowed by this old man from divine Dr. Sun. Wang Ji seemed to have seen through Li Zixuan's thoughts and said with a smile, as for the borrowed, he mentioned, it must be that he did not return it. Sun Simiao reacted after a while. He would probably find trouble with Wang Ji. Eh, Mr. Wang is really a genius. You actually thought of using green alum to make sulfuric acid. Admirable, admirable. Li Zixuan was sincerely convinced. This chemical reaction might not be difficult for a modern person like him, but Wang Ji, an ancient person, could actually make dilute sulfuric acid by himself. That was really amazing. At any time, creation was much more difficult than innovation. Wang Ji laughed and said, "You're too kind. This is all thanks to your chemistry textbook, Yamacho. That gave me a lot of inspiration. Also, some of my experiences in my early years also gave me a lot of help." Chapter 1074. In one of the episodes of the TV series The Palace, the female lead, Luo Qingchuan, recalled a quote from a teacher in a modern school. Sulfuric acid has been around since ancient times, but it wasn't called sulfuric acid back then. It was called green vitriol, and it wasn't used in industrial production. It was usually used to treat diseases like typhoid and dysentery. According to historical records, thieves in ancient times would burn the green vitriol collected from pharmacies and make it into a liquid. The liquid would corrode the walls of rich families and steal from them. Sulfuric acid had been widely used more than 1,000 years ago. Although green vitriol could be used to make sulfuric acid, there was something wrong with the description in the TV series. According to the Compendium of Materia Medica, green vitriol was a traditional Chinese medicine that could treat diseases like typhoid and malaria. However, green vitriol couldn't be burned, so it was definitely wrong to use it to make sulfuric acid. In the first chemistry laboratory in Tang Dynasty, the latter half of Wang Ji's sentence made Li Zixuan curious. He asked, "What happened in your early years? What did you do in your early years, Mr. Wang?" Wang Ji blushed and said, "I used to be a Taoist priest in my early years, and I used to make elixirs." Li Zixuan widened his eyes and looked at Wang Ji as if he was looking at an alien. He asked, "Mr. Wang, you used to make elixirs?" He only knew that Wang Ji was good at writing and used to be a Taoist priest, but he didn't expect this old man to be an alchemist. The academy had really picked up a treasure. Ghost. A ghost. Wang Ji was embarrassed. He coughed and said, "Ahem. That's all in the past. Yamacho. Don't mention it again. Don't mention it again." Now that Wang Ji had studied chemistry, he finally understood how ridiculous his alchemy was. The elixirs he made were just poisonous pills. If it weren't for Li Zixuan asking about it today, he would definitely not have mentioned the matter of refining pills all those years ago. In his opinion, this matter should be considered a stain in his life. Li Zixuan pursed his lips into a smile and said, "Ha, then I won't mention it. Mr. Wang, please continue." Wang Ji glanced at Li Zixuan with hidden bitterness before he continued. "Back then, when this old man was refining pills, I once threw green vitriol into the furnace. As a result, a small piece of the furnace was corroded. A few days ago, this old man suddenly thought of this matter. Combined with the chemistry textbook that Yamacho wrote, I felt that the reason why the furnace was corroded was probably because the green vitriol was decomposed under high temperature, producing sulfuric acid." Li Zixuan had a complicated expression on his face. In his previous life, he had read a post on Tieba saying, "Why did Western alchemy develop into chemistry, while Eastern alchemy only left behind some illusory elixirs?" In fact, this conclusion was a little too one-sided. The alchemists of ancient China were not completely useless. They invented gunpowder, sulfuric acid, and discovered oxidation reduction, metal displacement, and acid-base neutralization reactions. For example, the Eastern Jin Dynasty's alchemist Gu Hong successfully summed up the saying, "Cinnabar is burned into mercury, and when it accumulates, it becomes cinnabar." This was the first time that humans had used chemical methods to obtain a substance that was exactly the same as a natural product. It could be said to be a great creation. From the Han Dynasty to the Tang Dynasty, many alchemists recorded that copper could be replaced by iron in a sulfuric acid solution. This method was called the copper immersion method. It did not require high-temperature smelting to obtain copper powder. It was easy to operate, and the cost was lower. It was the world's earliest metal displacement reaction. In the Tang Dynasty, during the Kaiyuan era, the alchemist Gu Gongzi recorded in his Yellow Emperor's Nine Cauldrons Divine Pill Scripture the 9th volume of the refining stone gallbladder essence extraction method. It was the dry distillation of stone gallbladder, CuSO4, 5H2O, to obtain sulfuric acid. This was the world's earliest documented sulfuric acid production case. Western alchemists, on the other hand, originally refined copper, iron, lead, and other base metals into precious gold and silver to increase their wealth. In the Middle Ages of the West, alchemists believed that all metals were composed of mercury and sulfur. Mercury was the origin of all metals. Sulfur was the common component of all combustible substances, and gold and silver contained the purest mercury and sulfur. Therefore, in their view, the difference between ordinary metals and precious gold and silver was mainly in the ratio and purity of mercury and sulfur. Using a kind of philosopher's stone, the nature of the metal could be changed, and the base metals could be transformed into precious metals. This kind of philosopher's stone was revered as the wise man's stone. It was sacred and had magical properties. Countless alchemists went through thousands of mountains and rivers and tried their best to find the legendary wise man's stone. In this way, alchemists have been engaged in this kind of useless labor in the mineral, plant, and animal world for a long time. From the ancient Greek era to the Middle Ages, people spent more than 1,000 years on alchemy experiments. In the end, the dream of refining stone into gold did not come true. However, 1,000 years of pursuit did not make them give up their dream. Therefore, from this point of view, the alchemy of the Western Middle Ages represented the spirit of scientific inquiry. Perhaps this was why the alchemy of the West, after continuous development, finally found its home on the path of science, while the alchemy of our country and the Arab countries, although developed earlier, remained in the primitive form of chemistry. Looking at Western alchemy dialectically, it could be seen that Western alchemy, from the early days of blindly chasing stone into gold, developed to the later days of exploration and knowledge of natural substances, had ups and downs, and finally died out. However, without the early alchemists' painstaking exploration, it was likely that there would not be modern chemistry. The 16th century English philosopher Francis Bacon once made a fair and reasonable evaluation of the contribution of alchemy to science. He said, "The painstaking perseverance of alchemists in searching for gold has led their descendants to many useful inventions and beneficial experiments, and indirectly led chemistry to the bright road." To some extent, the ancient Western alchemists and Eastern alchemists were a group of ancient chemistry supergeniuses. However, many alchemists' life goal was to refine elixirs. So many of their useful inventions were not widely used for a long time, such as gunpowder. Now, Wang Ji had gradually evolved from a traditional alchemist to an alchemist who was constantly seeking knowledge. His life goal was no longer to refine elixirs, but to seek knowledge in exploration. Many people may not believe it, but the titan of physics, Newton, in addition to the dazzling titles of physicist, mathematician, and dynamicist, he also had a little-known title, which was alchemist. Yamacho, this old man has a question. When sulfur is directly burned, why can't sulfur dioxide continue to react with oxygen in the air to form sulfur trioxide? Chapter 1075. Sulfur burned in the air to produce sulfur dioxide. Wang Ji was wondering why he couldn't use the reaction between sulfur dioxide and oxygen to produce sulfur trioxide and sulfuric acid. Not only had he thought about it, but he had also done a lot of experiments recently, all of which ended in failure. Li Zixuan heard this and couldn't help but secretly praise Wang Ji. This old man was very talented in the field of chemistry. He could even comprehend by analogy. Mr. Wang, it's not that sulfur dioxide can't continue to react, but if they want to react further, they need a catalyst. This is mentioned in the 2nd volume of Chemistry. Using sulfur dioxide to produce sulfuric acid was the most commonly used method in modern industry. The raw material was pyrite. The main component was ferrous sulfide, which was calcined at high temperature to produce sulfur dioxide. Under the action of the catalyst and high temperature, sulfur dioxide formed sulfur trioxide, which was absorbed by 98.3% sulfuric acid to produce pyrosulfuric acid. Finally, water was added to produce sulfuric acid. Catalyst? What kind of catalyst can catalyze the reaction between the two? In the first volume of chemistry, there was an introduction to catalysts, but Wang Ji didn't know what catalyst could catalyze the oxidation of sulfur dioxide. Platinum or vanadium pentoxide. Li Zixuan thought for a while and said lightly, "Platinum? Vanadium pentoxide? Yamacho, where can I buy these two things?" Wang Ji frowned and asked. Li Zixuan smiled helplessly and said, "These two things aren't sold anywhere. Especially the first one, as far as I know, it's very rare in the whole world. As for vanadium pentoxide, it could be extracted from the ammonium metavanadate in the vanadium ore, but as of now, no one in Tang Dynasty knows the use of the vanadium ore, let alone where the vanadium ore is." Wang Ji immediately said anxiously, "Yamacho, it doesn't matter if no one knows. We can send people to look for it. With this catalyst, we can produce sulfuric acid in large quantities. The current method of producing sulfuric acid from green alumina isn't suitable for mass production." He had heard Li Zixuan mention the importance of sulfuric acid several times before. After spending so much time together, Wang Ji deeply understood a principle. If Li Zixuan said it was important, then it must be important. Li Zixuan said that platinum and vanadium pentoxide could catalyze the further reaction of sulfur trioxide with oxygen, so it must be possible. Unlike normal students, Wang Ji, who had read the chemistry textbook and had personally done a lot of experiments, was completely convinced by Li Zixuan's knowledge in chemistry. At this time, Li Zixuan closed his eyes and fell into deep thought. Seeing this, Wang Ji quickly shut his mouth and did not dare to disturb him again. Actually, Li Zixuan was trying to recall which area had the most vanadium ores on the mineral distribution map from his previous life. If it wasn't for the fact that he now had super abnormal spiritual power, he wouldn't have been able to recall this thing at all. After a full quarter of an hour, Li Zixuan finally opened his eyes and said, "What Mr. Wang said just now makes sense. The vanadium mine is very important to the workshop's future technological advancement. We must send someone to look for it. I've just deduced that there should be a lot of vanadium mines in the Jianan circuit." The so-called Jianan circuit mainly referred to the modern-day Sichuan region. Back then, after the Qin dynasty destroyed Ba and Shu, they implemented the system of prefectures and counties in Sichuan. Ba and Shu prefectures were established in the former Ba and Shu prefectures. In the 5th year of the reign of Emperor Wu of Han, the Sichuan region was designated as Yi Province. In the 1st year of Jingguan, Li Er abolished the system of prefectures and changed Yi Province to Jianan Circuit. In modern-day China, vanadium mines were distributed in 19 provinces, cities, and autonomous regions. Among them, Sichuan had the most, with nearly 13 million tons of vanadium ore reserves. Searching for vanadium ores was a time-consuming and laborious task. However, it wasn't only Wang Ji who wanted to send people to look for them. Li Zixuan also wanted to send people to look for vanadium ores as soon as possible. As a modern person, no one understood the importance of sulfuric acid more than him. Putting aside the daily necessities derived from sulfuric acid like pigments, detergents, and cosmetics, for now, Li Zixuan felt that if the Tang Dynasty could produce sulfuric acid in large quantities, it should first be used in fertilizers, metallurgy, and petroleum industries. These 3 industries were all inseparable from sulfuric acid. When the conditions were ripe, they could also use sulfuric acid to introduce batteries. With sulfuric acid, it would be much easier to manufacture electric scooters. Going off topic, the production of nuclear fuel for nuclear reactors, the preparation of titanium, aluminum, and other alloy materials used in reactors, as well as titanium alloys used in rockets, supersonic jets, and man-made satellites were all directly or indirectly related to sulfuric acid. sulfuric acid was really the cornerstone of the national defense industry. When Wang Ji heard Li Zixuan say that there was a vanadium mine in the Jianan circuit, he couldn't help but be delighted. He exclaimed in admiration, "Could it be the disciple of spiritual master Ling Su? This old man admires Yamacho's geomancy." Old Wang thought that this result was really calculated by Li Zixuan. In addition, he had also heard about Fu Bin's previous trip to Hudong Circuit to look for vanadium ores. Therefore, he was even more impressed with Li Zixuan. All right. Mr. Wang, you go ahead with your work. Let's talk about the vanadium mine after the new year. You also have to pay attention to your rest during this period. Don't tire your body out. Li Zixuan felt a little guilty under Wang Ji's fanatical and worshipful gaze and hurriedly ran away. Although sulfuric acid was very important, the new year was equally important. The Chinese people's feelings towards the new year had not weakened for thousands of years. Li Zixuan didn't want to send people to Sichuan to look for vanadium ores at this critical juncture near the end of the year. Ma Zhou was very efficient. In the afternoon, he had written a beautiful article about the free medical consultation. After Li Zixuan read it, he couldn't help but secretly sigh. How can a golden fish be a fish in a pond? This small temple of his would probably not be able to accommodate a great Buddha like Ma Zhou in a few years. There were some things that he could change, but there were some that he couldn't. A person like Ma Zhou, who was full of talent, would definitely become a country's prime minister in the end. The next day, Tang Daily's headlines announced that with the support of the Warm Tang Foundation, Sun Simiao and 2 former doctors from the Imperial Physician Department were planning to hold a free medical consultation in the surrounding counties of Chang and City. When the news spread, thousands of people cheered. Regardless of whether it was modern or ancient times, there were many people who couldn't afford to fall sick. They didn't even dare to fall sick because sometimes a seemingly insignificant illness could very well drag down an entire family. Now that Sun Simiao, the Tang Empire's publicly recognized miracle doctor, was planning to hold a free medical consultation, many families with patients would be reborn because of this free medical consultation. How could the people not be happy? Those who knew the news spread it everywhere. In an instant, the people of Chang and City and its surrounding areas were beaming with joy as if it was the new year. Chapter 1076. This morning, Sun Simiao and his group arrived at the Lantian County Yamen first. This was the first stop of their volunteer medical treatment trip. They chose this place mainly because it was close to Yinshan. The county magistrate of Lantian County had already received the news, so he personally came out of the Yamen to welcome them. There were desks, tables, and chairs in the yard of the county Yamen. Everyone entered the county Yamen. Sun Simiao and the other doctors took their seats one by one, while Mo Zhong and the other academy guards stood on both sides. Sun Simiao smiled and said, "County magistrate I'm ready. Don't delay your work." County magistrate, he was a middle-aged scholar in his 40s. He had a small beard on his chin and did not have a big belly like the other officials. He looked like an easygoing person. It's fine. It's fine. There haven't been any cases in the Yamen recently. I've also learned some medical knowledge since I was young. Today I can learn from Dr. Sunday. It won't delay my work. Li Zixuan had sent people to greet the county magistrates of the 22 counties in Chang yesterday afternoon. They must treat Sun Simiao and his group well and ensure the safety of Sun Simiao, Dr. Qin, Dr. Wang, and the others. Lantian County was where most of Li Zixuan's fiefdom was located. Strictly speaking, county magistrate, he was a subordinate of Li Zixuan. Today, all the Yamen runners were present. No matter what the reason was, they were all summoned back by county magistrate he. It could be said that the Yamen was on full alert today to prevent any troublemakers from offending Sun Simiao. Yes, since that's the case, please let the people waiting outside in. Sun Simiao frowned slightly. Due to his long years of cultivation and traveling, he did not like to deal with local officials. He was not used to county magistrate he's enthusiasm. No problem. County magistrate, he answered and turned to the runner behind him. Arrest her son. Let the people outside the Yamen line up and come in. After that, he gave the latter a look indicating that he should be more vigilant and prevent any bad people from mixing into the crowd. Yes, Constable Sun agreed, loudly, and nodded almost imperceptibly. Line up, don't squeeze. There was already a sea of people outside the yamen. The commoners were squeezed into the crowd with their families. None of them wished to miss today's free medical consultation. If they missed it, it wouldn't just be a matter of waiting a year. Seeing that the officials of the yamen were finally willing to let them go, the commoners cheered. The previously crowded and noisy crowd immediately lined up into 2 columns and began to enter the yamen for treatment. Elder, where are you feeling unwell? Divine Doctor Sun, this old woman's leg hurts day and night. Please take a look. Not long after, the free clinic officially began. In front of Sun Simiao sat a white-haired old lady. Behind the old lady stood a woman. She must be her daughter-in-law or daughter. Does it hurt here? No. Here. Right. Does it hurt here? Ouch, it hurts a little too. Sun Simiao stood up and walked to the old lady. He pinched a few spots on the old lady's right leg. After confirming the location of the injury, he sat back down and said, "The main reason for this is that your body is too damp. Coupled with the cold weather, it's only natural that such symptoms would appear. I'll prescribe you a cream to remove dampness and remove cold. Apply it to your leg when you go back." The old lady and the woman behind her were overjoyed. They thanked him profusely. "Thank you, Divine Dr. Sun. Thank you, Divine Dr. Sun." Sun Simiao smiled. After a while, he finished writing the prescription and said, "Please go to the side to get the herbs." Next, the two were stunned. After looking at Hu Jing and the pile of herbs behind him, they finally understood that Sun Simiao was not only treating them and writing prescriptions, he was also giving them herbs for free. "Thank you, Divine Dr. Sun." The two of them were moved to tears. They thanked Sun Simiao again and almost knelt down before him. Sun Simiao waved his hand and said, "No need to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank the Emperor and those who donated money to the Warm Tang Foundation." In the palace, after the morning court, a doctor from the Imperial Physician Department asked to see Li Er. He told Li Er about Sun Simiao and the others' tour for free medical treatment on Tang daily. He also asked Li Er to allow the doctors from the Imperial Physician Department to join in. When Li Er heard the news, he immediately agreed. Therefore, when it was close to noon, the doctors from the Imperial Physician Department brought more than 50 students from the Imperial Physician Department to the Lantian County Yamen to join in the free medical treatment team. When the citizens heard the news, they couldn't help but kneel in front of the palace and chant, "His Majesty is benevolent." At this time, seeing so many doctors entering the county yamen, the citizens who came later and were at the back of the line finally stopped worrying that they wouldn't be able to get their turn. "Divine Dr. Sun, my wife caught a cold a few days ago. Today, her forehead suddenly became hot. Please give her some medicine to save her." In the afternoon, a middle-aged man carried a woman whose eyes were closed and whose face was red. He staggered to Sun Simiao and cried bitterly. Sun Simiao's eyes narrowed. He said, "Then quickly help her sit up. This poor Taoist will take her pulse." However, the man's expression changed. He said, "Taoist son, my wife has a fever without a doubt. Why do I need to take her pulse? You can just give her some medicine to reduce her fever. Besides, men and women shouldn't touch each other." What if the so-called fever is what people in modern times call a fever? How dare you? Seeing that the man was becoming more and more outrageous, County Magistrate, he finally couldn't help but scold him. At this time, County Magistrate, he really wanted to take the man down and interrogate him. However, he also knew that there were many citizens here. If he were to take the man down rashly, it would likely cause panic. After thinking about it, he suppressed the anger in his heart and said, "Where did you come from? How dare you speak so rudely in front of this official and divine Dr. Sun? Doctors don't differentiate between men and women. If you're afraid of treatment, why did you bring your wife here to see a doctor?" The man lay on the ground and complained with snot and tears. "Lord, it's not that I'm being nosy. It's just that my wife doesn't like to be touched by other men. Now, my wife's cold has worsened. Her fever hasn't subsided, and she's unconscious. I beg Lord and Divine Dr. Sun to be kind and give my wife some medicine. I beg the two of you." Hearing him cry so miserably, many people in the yard began to whisper. Obviously, some of them had begun to sympathize with the man. County Magistrate, his face froze. At this time, he also believed that the man was evil. However, the other side was Sun Simiao. If he stood on a man's side, wouldn't he be disrespecting Sun Simiao? However, if he didn't do so, once the people's hearts changed, he would lose his official position. Chapter 1077. Haha, what's so difficult about that? You, come and take the pulse of this madam. In the front yard of the Lantian County Yamen, when County Magistrate he was caught in a dilemma and didn't know how to choose, Sun Simiao glanced at the unconscious woman in the man's arms and said coldly, "Hey, that's right. As the saying goes, a famous teacher produces a brilliant student. Dr. Sun's medical skills are outstanding. Since this young lady is under Dr. Sun's tutelage, her medical skills will definitely not be bad." County Magistrate, his eyes lit up as he said with a smile. The most important thing was that this way, he didn't have to be caught in the middle. "Yes, Master." Hu Wei responded and handed the work in her hands to a student from the Imperial Physician Department. Then, she walked towards the sick woman, who knew that the middle-aged man would quickly hug the woman in his arms tightly at this time, guarding against Hu Wei as if she was a bad person. He said, "You're not allowed to come over. You're not allowed to take my wife's pulse." County Magistrate, his face darkened and said unhappily, "How can you be so ungrateful? Previously, you said that your wife doesn't like to touch the opposite sex. Dr. Sun and I both understand that. But now, this young lady is taking your wife's pulse. What are you objecting to?" The man's face was a little flustered at first, but then he forced himself to calm down and said, She's just a little girl who's still wet behind the ears. What does she know about medical treatment? I can't let her take care of my wife. Otherwise, when she's not good enough, she might diagnose my wife with other diseases. She's a righteous person. Letting her take care of my wife is like disregarding human life." "You, presumptuous." County Magistrate, he was so angry that smoke was almost coming out of his 7 orifices. He pointed at the man and secretly looked at Sun Simiao and Hu Wei's faces. Seeing that the two of them weren't angry, he couldn't help but feel relieved. Then he said sternly, "As far as I know, Miss Hu is Dr. Sun's last disciple. She has treated many people and can be said to have superb medical skills. Don't be unreasonable here, or don't blame me for being rude to you." Actually, at this moment, County Magistrate, he already felt that there was something wrong with the man in front of him. However, it was only a feeling. He had no evidence. Otherwise, he would have ordered the bailiffs to arrest him. Seeing that County Magistrate, his tone was not good, the man's voice suddenly weakened a little, but he still didn't want Hu Gong to check his wife's pulse. He argued even if she is Dr. Sun's disciple, she is only in her teens. How can her medical skills be so good? I don't want her to come see me. Divine Dr. Sun, if you really have the heart of a bodhisattva, then please give me some antipyretic medicine. If you don't want to give me the medicine, I'll take my wife to the doctor in Chang'an City. Sun Simiao narrowed his eyes and remained unmoved. At this moment, Hu Gong smiled and said, "Brother, it's not that my master doesn't want to prescribe medicine for you, but as a doctor, he can't prescribe medicine without personally diagnosing the patient. If my master prescribes medicine only based on your one-sided statement, then he is disregarding human life. Moreover, not all fevers are caused by a cold. As far as I know, heavy humidity, night sweats, internal injuries, blood and qi not flowing smoothly, and visceral dysfunction can all cause fevers. So, brother, if you really want the best for your wife, then let me check your wife's pulse." As soon as she said this, Dr. Wang, Dr. Qin, and the other doctors of the Imperial Physician Department couldn't help but nod their heads. They secretly praised Sun Simiao's ability to teach his disciple, which was as good as his medical skills. However, the man wasn't in such a good mood at this moment. He still stubbornly said, "I don't care. What do you know about medical treatment as a little girl? What do you know about checking the pulse? County magistrate, he flew into a rage and was about to order the arrest when Hugong beat him to it and said, "Brother, you keep saying that I'm young and don't know how to treat illnesses. Then I have to introduce myself." Then she looked at the bustling commoners in the courtyard and said loudly, "Fellow villagers, my name is Hugong. Before April this year, I was just a blind girl who couldn't see anything. Fortunately, my master saved me and I became his disciple. Although I don't dare to say that I've saved all the people in the world, I've actually cured at least a few hundred people. In August this year, my master and I traveled to Liang province, and there was a plague there. It was my master and I who helped the local medical officials and suppressed the plague. So, brother, tell me, do I have the qualifications to treat your wife?" Hu Jing's beautiful face, coupled with her extremely clean voice, made the people present feel as if they had experienced a spring rain. Those who were in a bad mood also felt their moods lighten up at this moment. "Wow, this girl is amazing. She's been studying medicine for less than a year, and she can actually cure a plague. Tisk, aren't you spouting nonsense? How can Dr. Sun's disciple be bad? I remember now. Isn't this the fairy doctor who was rumored in Liang province?" "Fairy doctor? Yes, that's her." Some of the commoners recognized Hugong, and the crowd immediately exclaimed. When a middle-aged man heard the discussions and cheers, his face was as black as ink. He could no longer speak. "Brother, if you don't believe me, then I'll treat you first." Hugong laughed. "Treat me? I'm not sick. I'm going to bring my wife to Chong and City to seek treatment. Get out of the way." The man picked up the woman in his arms and was about to leave. "Brother, your lips are purplish red, which means that your liver has been burning and your temper has been irritable recently. Are the 3 inches below your side often swollen and painful, and you don't have an appetite?" Hugong blurted out. When a man heard that, his body trembled and he could not help but stop in his tracks. Hugong continued, "Other than that, your mouth and tongue have been dry recently. You've been eating less and your chest feels stuffy. This is very likely a symptom of depression." "Ridiculous. What stingy atmosphere? I've never heard of it. This little girl is spouting nonsense again," the middle-aged man angrily rebuked. The few doctors present shook their heads. Hugong chuckled and explained, "As the saying goes, the 5 viscera and 6 bowels, the major meridians and small meridians circulate endlessly day and night. It must rely on the qi in the chest to mediate. In the human body, there is a stream of qi in the chest that governs the breathing of the lungs. It supports the whole body and boosts the spirit. This is the qi, also known as the qi. Spirit, qi, and spirit. All 3 are indispensable." Clap, clap, clap. "Good, good, good. Priest's son, you've taken in a good disciple." Dr. Chin, who was sitting at the back and watching the development of the situation, could not help but clap his hands and exclaim, "You've been studying medicine for less than a year, and you're so familiar with medicine. You have such talent in medicine. Even I am ashamed of my inferiority. Ha ha." Chapter 1078. Wow, the fairy doctor is indeed amazing. Why do I feel that this person is here to cause trouble? This person looks familiar. I think I've seen him somewhere before. The middle-aged man's ignorance was publicly slapped in the face by Hu. The commoners discussed animatedly while the middle-aged man's face turned green and white. He was about to fly into a rage out of humiliation. Constable's son, who was guarding the door, seemed to have thought of something. His expression changed as he instructed his subordinates. Then he quickly walked to County Magistrate He and whispered a few words into his ear. "County Magistrate," he was startled. Then his eyes spat fire as he scolded in a low voice. "Bastard! Why didn't you say so earlier?" Just as Constable's son was about to open his mouth to explain, he heard Hu say something earth-shattering, shocking everyone in the courtyard. "Also, this big brother, your wife is only asleep. Why did you say that she's sick? Asleep?" These 3 words were no different from a deep water bomb that blew up the tranquil courtyard of the yamen. What does the fairy doctor mean? What does she mean by asleep? Could it be that this woman isn't sick at all? Is this man here to cheat the medicine? But this woman's face is red, and there are beads of sweat on her forehead. It's obvious that she has a fever. The commoners were dumbfounded as they discussed animatedly. Nonsense. You bunch of quacks. I'm going to Chang and to get medicine for my wife. A bunch of quacks. The man's expression changed greatly as he roared angrily. Then he carried the woman in his arms and turned to rush out of the yamen. Oomph. Men, capture this person for this official. County Magistrate He's face was covered with frost as he ordered hatefully. Yes, there were already many people in the courtyard, and there were 4 or 5 yamen runners at the door. In such a short time, the man was still carrying the woman in his arms and could not rush out no matter what. Under the watchful eyes of the yamen runners, the middle-aged man was caught before he could escape. Let me go. My lord, don't believe this girl. She's slandering me. My wife really has a fever, Let me go quickly. I still have to save my wife. The man was still unwilling to give up and tried to gain the sympathy of the public by pretending to be pitiful. But at this time, the wife he was talking about had been pulled away, who actually supported the woman to lean against the chair. Taking this opportunity, she took the woman's pulse. Seeing this, the middle-aged man's face turned pale with a whoosh. Let go. You damn girl. Quickly let go of my wife. Murder. You're treating human lives like grass. The middle-aged man tried his best to break free from the yamen runner's hold. But how could his small body fight against these burly yamen runners? Thus, he could only act shamelessly like a woman. All right. This big brother, I'm not treating human life like grass. Earlier, I saw that your wife's chest was rising and falling very regularly, which proved that her breathing was very even. She didn't seem to be suffering from a fever at all, so I guess that your wife wasn't sick at all. Just now, I took your wife's pulse and found that her pulse is stable and her body is very good. He just took some knockout pills. At this moment, who actually walked over with a cold look in his eyes as he spoke to the man who had been pinned down by the bailiffs. Knockout pills? Everyone was stunned again. County Magistrate, he couldn't hold it in anymore and shouted, Guaziming, how dare you? You actually swindled your way to the county yamen. You're looking down on me. Guaziming? Is that the scholar Gua who drinks and gambles every day and eventually lost all his ancestral wealth? If County Magistrate didn't remind me, I wouldn't have known. Now that he reminded me, you don't say. This person looks quite like Guaziming. What do you mean by look like? They're obviously the same person. But why would this guy want to drug his wife and trick divine Dr. Sun? Sigh. What else could it be? Isn't it because he wants to swindle a few sets of herbs to treat fever from Dr. Sun? If he takes them out and sells them, he can at least earn a few hundred copper coins. This son of AB Asterisk TCH is really a bastard. How could he do such a wicked thing? If old Master was spirit is in heaven, wouldn't he be angered to death? That's right. Dr. Sun was kind enough to treat us for free, and this son of AB Asterisk TCH actually did such a despicable thing. If my son is as useless as this scholar Gua, I'll beat him to death. Sigh. That young lady is also a pitiful person. She hasn't even enjoyed a few days of happiness after marrying into the Gua family, and the Gua family's wealth has been squandered away by this Guaziming. This Guaziming would beat her up every time he gets drunk. How pitiful. Sigh. That's right. Now, this young lady of the Gua family has been drugged by this bastard, and then brought here to swindle and embarrass herself. This Guaziming is really heartless. Beat him to death. Beat this bastard to death. County Magistrate, he only knew the true identity of this middle-aged man after Constable Sun's report. His scolding caused many of the commoners in the crowd to recognize Guaziming. After a series of discussions, Guaziming's dark history was instantly exposed. The commoners were even more enraged, and each of them wanted to rush up and beat Guaziming to death. The atmosphere in the county office was a little tense. County Magistrate, he saw the situation and quickly shouted, Everyone, stop. Men, take this Guaziming to the prison and wait for trial. Yes, the bailiffs lifted Guaziming from the ground and escorted him to the back door of the county office. In fact, These bailiffs wanted to beat Gwaziming up even more than the commoners. But they knew that even if they wanted to beat him up, they couldn't do it in front of so many commoners. Otherwise, if the commoners came over and beat him up, he would definitely be beaten to death. If that happened, they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Dr. Sun, I'm really sorry. I was careless and almost fell into this unruly commoner's trap. After Gwaziming was taken away, County Magistrate he coughed twice and bowed apologetically to Sun Simiao. No worries. As long as you didn't waste the Nguyen Tang Foundation's donation for no reason. Sun Simiao waved his hand and said. Seeing that Sun Simiao didn't have any intention of blaming him, County Magistrate he sighed in relief and said, I heard from Constable Sun that Gwaziming was originally from a scholarly family. However, he later got addicted to alcohol and gambling. After his father passed away, he became even more uncontrollable and quickly squandered away all the family's wealth. Who knew that after squandering away all the family's wealth, he still didn't know how to restrain himself. Not only did he look for people to borrow money, he even swindled people into the county office. This is really outrageous. Hu Meng glanced at the woman lying on the chair and sighed faintly. It's just that I pity this sister. She was ruined by a man like Gwaziming. County Magistrate, please help her more in the future. County Magistrate, he smiled and said, ha ha, of course, of course. However, there's one thing that I don't understand. Please enlighten me. Hu Meng raised her head and said, County Magistrate, you want to ask why this madam's face is so red, right? County Magistrate, he gave her a thumbs up and said, Miss Hu is really smart. You got it so quickly. Actually, County Magistrate, he wasn't the only one who wanted to know. Everyone else wanted to know, too. As expected, everyone in the courtyard pricked up their ears. They wanted to know the truth of the matter. Hu Meng pursed her lips and said, Actually, it's not as complicated as you think, County Magistrate. This madam's face is just a little more rouge. Rouge? County Magistrate, he choked and almost vomited blood. When the doctors and students from the Imperial Physician Department heard this, they were even more embarrassed. They had studied medicine for so many years, but they were almost fooled by Gwaziming's little trick. Chapter 1079. The farce finally ended with Gwaziming's arrest. The people continued to line up for medical treatment, but while they were lining up, many people didn't forget to condemn Gwaziming. The news reached the Li residence. During dinner, Yi Guozhong sighed and shook his head. It's hard to predict people's hearts. This is what it means to predict people's hearts. Sometimes you want to be a good person, but you will always meet people with ulterior motives. Li Zixuan was silent for a moment, then said, But in this world, there are always many good people. We can't give up the persistence in our hearts because of a few rats. Old Madame Yi laughed and clapped her hands. Ha ha, Xiao Xian said it well. I always believe that the heavens are watching everything that people do. Some evil is not unpunished, but it's not time yet. Some kindness is the same. Good and evil will eventually be repaid. This is the truth. Yi Fashion nodded and said, I agree with grandmother and cousin. No matter how evil others are, we just need to stay true to our hearts. Mrs. Li rubbed her nephew's head with a smile and said, All right, don't talk anymore. Eat. It won't taste good if it gets cold. Everyone put down the topic and began to eat. After dinner, Li Zixuan and Han Yushi returned to the west courtyard, but they didn't go to bed immediately. Han Yushi took out an account book and began to flip through it. Li Zixuan stood at the side and watched. After a while, he frowned and couldn't help but say, Wife, we spent more than 7,000 strings of coins today? Yes. Why are you so surprised? Dr. Sun brought a group of doctors from the Imperial Medical Department for a day and used so many herbs. Don't they need money? Han Yushi felt that her husband was making a fuss about nothing, so she said. Li Zixuan smacked his lips and sighed. Tisk tsk. I know that herbs cost money, but I didn't expect it to be so expensive. This is more expensive than sending coal stoves and clothes. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seems that whether it's in ancient times or modern times, seeing a doctor is quite expensive. At the very least, It's much more than the usual expenses of food, clothing, housing, and transportation. Han Yushi rolled her eyes at her man and said, "This is still because Dao's son and a group of imperial physicians tried their best to replace some of the expensive medicinal herbs when prescribing medicine. Otherwise, wouldn't have been 7,000 strings of coins." Speaking of which, who had actually helped the Tang Foundation reduce their losses? Husband, this child is becoming more and more promising. Uncle Hu and Aunt Lu don't have to worry about them anymore. While Han Yushi was rejoicing over the recent emergence of talents in the Han village, Li Zixuan's focus was different. When he heard that who had actually helped the foundation save 2 or 3 strings of money, he was immediately surprised. 2 or 3 consecutive hits. Wasn't it just a few decoctions for febrile diseases? Is it that expensive? Speaking of which, in modern times, a cold medicine costs only $1, right? Now that he had finished 2 or 3 rounds of medicinal soup, what he was eating wasn't medicinal soup, but immortal herbs. Han Yushi pursed her lips gloomily and then said angrily, "Does husband think that fever is so easy to treat? It's very difficult for a normal doctor to treat it. In our Tang Empire, who knows how many people die from fever every year? Daoist son's medical skills are top-notch. The decoctions that he prescribes, not to mention the medicinal herbs, are worth more than 2 or 3 strings of coins." Oh, Li Zixuan instantly understood. In the past, he had heard that febrile diseases were considered serious illnesses for ancient people. If they were not treated well, they might even die. He didn't expect it to be true. After thinking about it, he thought to himself, "Looks like there's a problem with the medical skills of this era. A small prescription for a cold decoction hasn't been popularized yet. It's not good to keep it to oneself. Medical skills must be constantly exchanged to improve. Old son probably hasn't started writing his 1,000 gold prescriptions yet, right? I have to hurry him up and give him some advice while I'm at it. When the time comes, once he settles down to write his book, he won't have time to wander around. He can also leave behind a medical canon for all the doctors in Tang Empire. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Hey, hubby. While he was lost in thought, Li Zixuan felt his arm being shaken twice. He took a closer look and realized that it was Han Yushi calling him. He came back to his senses. "Oh, my wife, what's the matter?" Han Yushi rolled her eyes and had no choice but to repeat herself. She said, "I'm asking hubby, you used Leather Knight to write a record of a mortal's journey to immortality in the newspaper. Now, do you want to donate some money?" "Hubby, what were you thinking about just now? Why were you so lost in thought?" "Donate money? Oh, my wife, did you read today's Tang Daily?" When Li Zixuan heard this, he knew that Han Yushi had read the notice on Tang Daily, Jianghu, about the author donating money to the editorial department. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was his wife addicted to doing charity? She was asking him for money instead. But when he thought about it, it was quite interesting. He had 2 identities now. Han Yushi was asking Leather Knight for money. Logically speaking, there was nothing wrong with that. "Wife, those authors are donating the rewards they received this month or next month. Your hubby has finished writing the novel, but I haven't received any rewards. How should I donate?" The main reason was that he felt that the foundation wasn't sure of money now. Otherwise, he would definitely donate all the rewards he received. When Han Yushi heard this, she snorted. "Who said there's no more? I heard from Steward Ma that although hubby's novel was finished last month, there were still many people who gave hubby rewards this month. Up until now, there were already a few 1,000 strings of coins." Li Zixuan was slightly surprised. Then he looked at Han Yushi's cute wrinkled nose and couldn't help but scratch her nose. He said dotingly, Okay. I'll do as you say. My wife, you can tell Steward Ma yourself. Sigh. My wife, you're really a little money grubber. The Tang Foundation hired you as the vice president. They really picked up a treasure. Huh? Didn't they pick up a treasure? How could the manager of a charity foundation use his own family's money for charity? Han Yushi grabbed Li Zixuan's hand and said unhappily, "Hubby, aren't I just accumulating merit for our future children?" Li Zixuan shuddered. His head moved closer to Han Yushi's face, and he said nervously, "My wife, you're pregnant?" He remembered that the safety measures had been done quite well recently. That shouldn't be. Han Yushi was stunned. When she came to her senses, she was instantly embarrassed and said, "Hubby, I'm talking about the future." "You? What are you talking about? What's there and not there?" Lisa Xuan let out a big sigh of relief and said, "Phew, that's good." When Han Yushi heard this, she glanced at Lisa Xuan faintly and sighed softly in her heart. Chapter 1080. In the West Garden of the Imperial Palace, Lier had just finished reviewing memorials from the Sweet Nectar Hall. He saw that Zhang Sun was wrapped in thick clothes and that there were 2 stoves burning in the room. He guessed that Li Changxian or Li Tai had told her about the need to open the windows for ventilation. The west window was half open. When Lier pushed open the door and entered, the air on both sides formed convection. The cold wind blew past Empress Zhangsuan's ears with a whoosh, causing her to shiver uncontrollably. Seeing this, Lier couldn't help but laugh. After tomorrow, the heating in this bedroom will be finished. At that time, Maid Guanyin won't feel cold anymore. Your Majesty, the heating that Changqian and Qin Ke mentioned 2 days ago, is it really that amazing? Empress Zhangsun resisted the cold and stood up to help Lier take off his cloak as she asked. Lier helped Zhangsun sit down on the couch and said with a smile, "Changqian and Qin Ke both personally experienced it at Lisa Xuan's home. How could it be fake? If I hadn't been so busy recently, I would definitely have gone to that kid's home to experience it." Empress Zhangsun covered her mouth and laughed. "Your Majesty is joking again. However, I have discovered that Your Majesty seems to be especially close to the Marquis of Yong'an." Lier was startled and speechless for a moment. He retorted, "Is that so? Maid Guanyin, you said it the other way around, right? Who in the imperial court doesn't know that I often reprimand that brat?" Empress Zhangsun laughed softly and didn't refute. She thought in her heart, "Only when you close the door deeply will you reprimand him. Just based on your attitude toward the Marquis of Yong. And only Cheng Jijia, Qin Xiong, and the other founding generals can compare to you." Lier saw that although Empress Zhangsun didn't refute, it was clear that she didn't believe him. He smiled helplessly and didn't make any more excuses. Instead, he skipped the topic and continued, "Let's not talk about anything else. The hot pot we ate tonight was truly delicious." Li Changxian and Li Tai not only did they introduce heating into the imperial palace, they also introduced hot pot. Compared to heating, which required time to produce, hot pot was something that could be made easily. Ever since Li Changxian returned to the palace with a secret recipe for the hot pot yesterday afternoon, Lier had actually eaten 3 hot pot meals. In other words, Old Li's 3 meals a day were all hot pot. This was simply insane. This hot pot is indeed extraordinary. Moreover, this method of cooking the vegetables before dipping them in the sauce not only retains the freshness of the ingredients, but also allows the ingredients to be infused with flavor. Changle had never eaten mutton before. She didn't expect that because of the hot pot, she had eaten a lot in the past 2 days. In this concubine's view, the Marquis of Yong in skill in gourmet cuisine is truly unmatched in the entire Great Tang. Speaking of hot pot, Empress Zhangsun couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The taste was only one aspect. The liveliness of eating hot pot with the whole family was what she missed the most. When Lier heard that, his mood was great. It was only to hear him laugh loudly and say, then tell the imperial chef to prepare the ingredients every day. In the future, I will accompany Maid Guanyin to eat hot pot every day. When Empress Zhangsun heard that, she was secretly delighted. Suddenly, she opened her mouth and said, "But in this way, won't Steward Zhao be burdened?" Hearing her say that, it seemed that the great Grandmaster Zhao Song was actually doing as Lisa Xuan had predicted. He was actually doing the work of cutting mutton. Lier thought for a moment and said, "Aren't there still 2 imperial concubines? When the time comes, they will take turns with Zhao Song." When Zhangsun heard that, she was speechless. In the entire world, only Li heir could be so extravagant to have a grandmaster master as a chef. Sun Simiao's tour of free medical treatment had improved the people's impression of the Warm Tang Foundation. The next day, even more people went to the Warm Tang Foundation, especially the people who had been treated at the Lantian County Yamen yesterday. They had received free medicine from Sun Simiao and the other imperial physicians. Today, they all came to express their sincerity. In the past, when the people in the family fell ill, they would usually go to the temple to pray to the gods. If the family recovered, they would go to the temple to fulfill their vows. What they were doing now was similar to praying for blessings and fulfilling vows. The only difference was that they were not doing it at the temple, but at the Warm Tang Foundation. The people could not afford to donate large amounts of money, but they were a group of people who knew how to be grateful. Sun Simiao and the others were treating them for free. Even if they could not afford to donate tens or hundreds of strings of coins, they would still donate tens or hundreds of coins to ease their hearts. Moreover, they felt that donating here was more meaningful and genuine than going to the temple to fulfill their vows. In terms of treating illnesses, Sun Simiao seemed to be more powerful and effective than the gods and Buddhas. As a result, the temples in and around Chang and city received less money from incense offerings. The monks guarded the gates all day long, hoping for a few big customers. Did you guys notice? On the Merit Monument, all the famous families in Chang and city have come to donate money. But why didn't I see the Chui family donating? In front of the Warm Tang Foundation, someone pointed at the huge monument and asked in confusion. Back then, not long after the Warm Tang Foundation was established, Li Zixuan ordered the craftsmen to build a huge monument in front of the gate. It was called the Merit Monument, and it was used to record the names of those who had donated more than 1,000 strings of coins to the Warm Tang Foundation. The person had only said it casually, but as soon as he said it, many people subconsciously searched for the Chui family's name on the monument. After a few minutes, the people were not surprised to find that there was no one related to the Chui family on the monument. Therefore, they were instantly enraged. Even poor people like them were willing to donate money to the Warm Tang Foundation. But why was a top family like the Chui family doing nothing? There really is no Chui family. The Chui family is one of the 5 families, the role model of all scholars in the world. But they are so heartless and cold-blooded. This is so disappointing. A down-and-out scholar could not help but beat his chest and stomp his feet after looking at the monument. Originally, the 5 surnames and 7 hopes had a very high reputation in the minds of scholars. However, the scene today made many people recognize the reality of the situation. The Chui family was also stingy, cold-blooded, and heartless. What bullsh asterisk T Chui family? They are one of the 5 families. How stingy? That's right. The Chui family's young masters and young mistresses have hundreds of servants. They live a luxurious life, and they can't even bear to donate 1,000 strings of coins. His Majesty and Her Majesty have already donated a few thousand strings of coins. After donating, I will go to the Chui family's gate and spit on them. I want to go too. The Chui family is rich but heartless. They will suffer retribution. Originally, it was just a curious question, but in the end, it quickly turned into a public rage. Moreover, this rage would soon burn the Chui clan's headquarters in the capital. Chapter 1081. Most of the people who came to donate money today came from Lantian County. They should have gone back from Yinxing Gate in the east of Chang'an City, but they did not do so. After they donated money, they did not go to the East Gate. Instead, they went south. A group of people went straight to Dunhua Square. Dunhua Square was where the Chui family's stronghold in the capital was located. The Chui family is rich but heartless. The Chui family is cold-blooded and heartless. The Chui family is heartless. The Chui family is shameless. Usually, people would often hear jokes about how one spit from each person could drown you. The Chui family now had a real experience of being baptized by the people's spit. although the Chui family's threshold was high. And even if all the people in Chang and city spit at them, the Chui family had been standing for thousands of years. When had they ever suffered such humiliation? A 1,000-year-old family was also very concerned about their reputation. Unruly people. A bunch of unruly people. Men, chase all those unruly people away. If they don't want to leave, beat them up. In the backyard of the Chui family, Chui Shanfu's wife, Wang Shi, roared angrily. Her husband, Chui Shanfu, had been sent to Lingnan by Li Er. She was not in a good mood this month. Now, those unruly people in her eyes were causing trouble in front of the Chui family. How could she not be angry? Madam, do you want to wait for grandfather to come back? The butler of the Chui family asked carefully. His surname was Wang, and he had married with Wang Shi. He was considered Madame Wang's direct descendant. The Chui family's grandfather, Chui Junchuo, had gone to a manor in the south of Chang and city to recuperate because of the cold weather in Chang and city. Although it was cold there was a natural hot spring there. No need. Even if grandfather is at home, he will not allow these unruly people to cause trouble in front of the Chui family. Wang Shi's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. Yes, madam. The butler took the order and left. A moment later, a group of servants holding a stick suddenly rushed out of the Chui family's main gate. They ran like wolves and tigers to the people who came to spit and shouted, "Where did these unruly people come from? Why don't you open your eyes and see where you are? Is this something you can come and make trouble for? If you don't scram, don't blame me for being rude. Yes, get lost. Look at your poor appearance. Don't dirty our Chui family street." The servants were all fierce and arrogant. As the servants of a top aristocratic family, they indeed had the qualifications to be arrogant. However, their arrogance was used in the wrong place today. A bunch of lackeys who only know how to rely on their master's power. Under the feet of the emperor, could it be that you still dare to hit people? I will stand here today and see if you dare to hit me. A young man who looked like a scholar took a step forward and scolded arrogantly. His name was Yu Dehang, and he came from a farmer's family in Lantian County. Yesterday, he accompanied his mother to the county office to participate in the free clinic. Today, he also came to the city to fulfill his vow. In the past, his dream was the same as most people's. First, he wanted to pass the imperial examination, then marry a woman with 5 surnames. But today's incident made him a little disappointed in the legendary 5 surnames, 7 sex. The dignified 5 surnames prominent family was nothing more than this. Their hearts were also black. The arrogance and despotism of these evil servants made his heart burn with fury. Thinking back to the Li family's courteous attitude at the Warm Tang Foundation, he started to hate the Chui family more than anything else. Wow, Xiao Jing, you've done well today. Even though your Uncle Zhong used to laugh at you for not being able to pass the county-level examinations, but based on your tough attitude today, you will always be a county-level scholar in your Uncle Zhong's heart. No, you will be the top scholar. A burly man came up to you, Dehang, and laughed loudly. Uncle Zhong, Yu Dehang's small face reddened as he looked at the burly man in annoyance. After being yelled at by you, everyone here knows that I won't be able to pass the county-level examinations. Scholar Yu is right. You dare to hit people under the feet of the emperor? What does our spitting on the street have to do with the Chui family? Does this street belong to the Chui family? Seeing that someone had stepped forward, the people behind did not back down and started to jeer as well. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Madam has ordered that if these unruly people don't leave, take a stick and beat them away. The leader of the servants shouted angrily, and then took the lead to hit you Dehang with the stick. Io, F***CK. You bunch of dog slaves, how dare you hurt people on the street? See if I don't fight with you. Go, fight with them. Young Lane, Li Mansion. Hee. Young master, this is what happened. San Bao did not expect that the people would notice that the Chui family's name was not on the merit monument. The group of people in front of the Warm Tang Foundation's entrance was quickly noticed. San Bao hurried back to inform Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan was stunned when he heard this, but when he saw San Bao's gloating face, he put on a straight face and said, "What? Are you happy that the people are causing trouble for the Chui family?" San Bao replied instinctively, "Of course I'm happy, young master. Previously, that old fart from the Chui family kept causing trouble for you, and now, finally. Young master." San Bao was halfway through her sentence when she suddenly realized that Li Zishuan's tone was not right. So she quickly shut up. Li Zishuan snorted and flicked his sleeves. "Oomph. It's true that I have a grudge against the Chui family, but I never thought of letting these poor people stand up for me. They don't even care about the food and clothing of their own families. Do you think they can go against the Chui family? In the end, it won't be a lose-lose situation. Instead, they will be completely wiped out. For their families, it will be one disaster after another." Li Zishuan's purpose in establishing the Warm Tang Foundation was to help the poor. However, if the people were to fight against the Chui family, the ones who would be hurt would be the poor people like them. In that case, wouldn't he be helping the poor for nothing? If it were a transmigrator, they would definitely be secretly happy at this moment and might even be secretly adding fuel to the fire. This was because smart people loved to kill with a borrowed knife, eliminate dissidents, and reap the benefits of others. However, Li Zishuan, as a transmigrator, did not want to be such a smart person. He did not want to use the weak knife of the people to fight against the giant rock that was the Chui family. Some people often said that a general success was built on thousands of bones. However, Li Zishuan knew that he could not be so cold-blooded. Clap, clap, clap. Good. Xiao Xian, I'm very happy that you can think this way. Yi Guozhong, the crazy eavesdropper, suddenly appeared out of nowhere. He clapped his hands and sighed. The grudges between the Chui family and the Li family are all between them. In this matter, no matter what, we cannot drag the people into it. Chapter 1082. San Bao, get the horse ready. I want to go to the Chui family. Yongle Lane, Li family. After understanding the situation, Li Zishuan shouted at San Bao. San Bao became nervous and said worriedly, "Young master, it's dangerous for you to go alone. San Bao, get the rest of the family to go with you." Li Zishuan said crossly, "When I, the young master, am in danger, what can you all do if you go? Stop talking nonsense and get big white out." "Young master, San Bao's martial arts may not be as good as yours, but San Bao has thick skin and a lot of meat. He can block arrows for you." San Bao said unwillingly, "Get lost. I'll beat you up if you keep talking nonsense." Li Zishuan was touched, but he still scolded him mercilessly. San Bao had no choice but to leave. Yi Guozhong sighed and said, "Xiao Xian, I won't stop you if you want to go to the Chui family. But don't act rashly. The Chui family has been standing strong for thousands of years. Their background and hidden strength is not something you and I can imagine. So don't fall out with the Chui family unless you have no other choice." Li Zishuan frowned and said, "Grandfather, don't worry. I know the severity of the situation." Just as he finished speaking, San Bao brought the horses over. Pang Feiji walked over and cupped his fists. "Marquis, let me accompany you." Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, "No need. I'm just going to take a look. You stay here." After he finished speaking, he mounted his horse and rode out of the mansion. Behind him was Li Jingma and his wife, who had rushed over after hearing the news. The two of them asked Yi Guozhong about Li Zishuan's whereabouts. Pang Feiji saw that there was nothing else for him to do and left to patrol. However, what no one noticed was that after this fellow patrolled around the Li residence twice, he quietly slipped away. As for where he went, only the heavens knew. Dunhua Square, in front of the Chui family. This small skirmish had developed into a full-scale conflict. The poor commoners who had been fighting with the Chui family's guards could only retreat as they fought. However, not long after, they received wave after wave of reinforcements. Those were the commoners from the other counties who had come from the Warm Tang Foundation to support them. As a result, the Chui family's servants were not enough. The servant who shouted the loudest quickly asked the rest to hold the fort while he went in to get reinforcements. Chui Shanfu's wife, Wang Shi, was furious when she heard this. She sent out all the servants in the residence and swore to chase away all these unruly people. However, most of the servants of the Chui clan were used to living a comfortable life in the Chui clan. How could they be a match for these villagers who had been through hardships every day? Not long after, the Chui family servants were all wounded. Of course, many of the commoners were injured as well. Fortunately, the people on both sides did not kill them. Thus, although they were injured, they were far from being seriously injured to the point of dying. What a bunch of trash. Zhao Quan, Madam is not satisfied with your performance. She wants you to scram. Just as the Chui Manor's servant was about to lose, a big man wearing a blood-red cloak suddenly walked out from the Chui Manor. That big man was carrying a large saber, and there was a long scar on the right side of his face, looking extremely terrifying and sinister. Behind him, there were more than 10 martial artists in martial arts attire. Every one of them was holding a sword. These were not ordinary servants. They were the Chui family's guards. Or it could be said that they were part of the Chui family's warriors. Oh, it's Master Wan. That's great. Madam has finally sent you out. You have to avenge us. This bunch of unruly people are too much. The servant's name was Zhao Quan. When he heard someone scolding him, he did not get angry. Instead, he went up to them and said, the man neither agreed nor disagreed. He stretched out his hand and pulled Zhao Quan behind him. Zhao Quan could be heard grumbling in dissatisfaction. You can't even beat a bunch of bumpkins. You're really a disgrace to the Chui family. Scram, I will teach you how to deal with unruly people. Okay, Master Wan, the morale of the Chui family's servants rose by a lot. On the other hand, those commoners who came forward to spit when the scarred-faced big man walked out with a knife, most of them instantly became timid. After all, they could spit and kick people. But using a knife to kill and fighting to the death was not their forte. Moreover, even if you gave them a knife, they would not dare to go up and chop people. How is it? Do you want to scram yourselves? Or do you want me to use my knife to send you scram? That martial artist surnamed Wan walked over with a big knife and said with a light smile. When the commoners saw his arrogant look, their faces were filled with anger. But now that things had come to this, they were obviously not the Chui family's guards' match. So even if they were pointed at and scolded, most of the commoners did not dare to say anything. But it was easy to meet with accidents in life. There were still some people who were not afraid of power. Stop trying to scare people here. I don't believe that in broad daylight, you bunch of dog slaves dare to use a knife to commit murder. The little scholar Yu Di Jin stood out at the crucial moment. At this time, he seemed to have a backbone. After Yu Dehang said that, the commoners all felt that it was reasonable. This was the foot of the emperor. If the Chui family's martial artists really dared to go to the extreme, then the Chui family's future in Chang and would definitely not be good. That's right. Isn't it just holding a knife? You bunch of slaves dare to kill people? Many commoners followed behind Yu Dehang and started a jeer. That martial artist surnamed Wan was despised by the commoners, and his face instantly turned green and white. After a moment, this fellow's mouth flashed a trace of a sinister smile. Fortunately, it was a life and death struggle. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. This is what you asked for. Surnamed you, I will let you go to heaven today. In your next life, don't think of fighting with the Chui family. After saying that, the big man held the big knife with both hands and actually chopped towards Yu Dehang's body. If this knife hit the porcelain, then it would really be a cut in half. Yu Dehang's entire body would be split in half. Dehang quickly dodged. The crowd immediately let out cries of surprise. Some of the commoners even closed their eyes, waiting for the screams of the big knife piercing into the flesh. As the person involved, Yu Dehang's eyes were wide open. At this moment, he wanted to run, but he knew that he could not run away. His speed could not catch up with the big man's speed. Do I regret? Yu Deheng asked himself in the last few breaths of the statement. I don't regret. I, Yu Deheng, am worthy of the heavens and earth, worthy of my conscience. Thinking of this, Yu Deheng also closed his eyes and quietly waited for the arrival of death. Chapter 1083. Kong. Just as Yu Deheng was waiting for death with his eyes closed, he suddenly felt a gust of wind by his ear, followed by the sound of metal clashing. Following that, he heard a man's voice beside him, "Humph," in broad daylight. Who gave you the guts to hurt people on the streets? No matter how stupid Yu Deheng was, he knew that he was saved. He opened his eyes in joy and saw a man younger than him, holding a cold, gleaming long sword, blocking the heavy blade of the warrior, surnamed Wan. Following that, the man lightly waved the long sword, and the warrior, surnamed Wan, was sent flying far away. With a pung sound, like a sandbag, he slammed heavily into the Chui family's dark red iron gate. Master Wan, are you all right? The Chui family servants and warriors were shocked as they surrounded him and asked with concern. Hey, I'm fine. The warrior, surnamed Wan, pushed away the surrounding people who were trying to help him and walked in front of Li Zishuan. With a ferocious face, he said, Where did this little kid come from? How dare you meddle in the Chui family's business? Are you tired of living? If you know what's good for you, kneel down and kowtow to me. Maybe I'll let you die with dignity. Noisy. The young man frowned. No one saw how he made his move, and the warrior, surnamed Wan, was sent flying again. Pung. No one knew if the young man did it intentionally or not, but the warrior, surnamed Wan, crashed into the same spot again. The Chui family's main gate suffered 2 consecutive heavy blows and finally could not take it anymore. With a loud boom, the Chui family, which had been glorious for close to 1,000 years, was smashed down for the first time. In front of the Chui family's gate, the people who were watching the show, the people who participated in the fight, the Chui family servants and warriors were all stunned. Everyone only had one thought at this moment. Crazy, crazy. The Chui family's main gate was smashed down by someone. This was a slap to the Chui family's face. Marquis Yeoman. He's Marquis Yeoman. What? You said this young man is Marquis Yeoman? How is that possible? It's really Marquis Yeoman. I've seen him many times. I can't be wrong. Oh my God. The Marquis of Yeoman. And actually smashed the Chui family's main gate. Bullshit. Don't you know how to F*** king talk? It was clearly that warrior, surnamed Wan, who smashed the Chui family's door. What does it have to do with the Marquis of Yeoman? These words were spoken by Yu Deheng. Being in the eye of the storm, no one could understand the shock in his heart at this moment. Originally, he thought that he was going to die, but at the critical moment, he was saved by a young man who fell from the sky. Especially when he found out that the young man who saved his life was Li Zishuan, one of the most popular nobles in the imperial court. He felt his soul tremble. Because the name Marquis Yeoman and was even greater than the heavens in Lantian City. There were tens of thousands of people in Lantian City, and no one had not received Li Zishuan's kindness. But when he heard that Li Zishuan had smashed the Chui family's main gate, he subconsciously quivered. Although he worshipped Li Zishuan, but he knew that with Li Zishuan's current power, he was definitely not the Chui family's match. Hence, he came up with an idea to help Li Zishuan get off the hook. This idea seemed very childish, but Yu Deheng could only think of such a childish idea in a short period of time. Because he was anxious to correct others, he couldn't help but swear. Hey, Deheng is right. It was obviously the Chui family's own people who smashed the main gate, and it has nothing to do with the Marquis of Yeoman. That burly man, surnamed Zhong, was first stunned, but immediately followed up with a loud voice to echo. That's right, it was the Chui family who smashed it, and it has nothing to do with the Marquis of Yeoman. No matter how stupid the commoners were, they knew what they should say. In a moment, the voices of the crowd gradually became unified, and there was no second voice to be found. All the servants and warriors of the Chui manor were shocked and angry at this moment. They were shocked because this young man in front of them was actually the recently famous Marquis Yeoman. They were angry because this group of commoners actually dared to lie with their eyes wide open, treating them as if they were blind or played with. Marquis Yeoman? Even if you are Marquis Yeoman, and you cannot knowingly break the law. Warrior 1 spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood, climbed up from the ground, and walked to Lisa Schwan about 3 feet away, and said angrily. It was just that his tone of voice was already much better than before. Clearly, he was scared of being beaten up by Lisa Schwan. Ask your master to come out. You are not fit to speak to this Marquis. Lisa Schwan glanced at him and said indifferently. It wasn't that he was acting like a big shot, but he really couldn't be bothered to speak to this kind of brute who only knew how to be used as a tool. You. The warrior surnamed Juan was instantly humiliated. His face alternated between green and white. However, Lisa Schwan mercilessly interrupted him. What? You don't accept it? Then pick up your sword and come forward to fight. Otherwise, quickly go back and ask your master to come out. Finally, Warrior Juan's face changed, and he didn't dare to say anything else, and immediately ran back to the Chui family in a sorry state. What is your name? Where do you live? Lisa Schwan turned around, looked at Yu Dehang, who he saved earlier, and asked with a smile. Yu Dehang was taken aback, because the current enthusiastic Lisa Schwan was like a completely different person from before. Oh, Marquis, my name is Yu Dehang, and I live in Lantian County's Yu family village. Just now, I am indebted to Marquis for saving me, and I am extremely grateful. Yu Dehang, who recovered from her shock, cupped her hands towards Lisa Schwan. Yu family village? If she didn't remember wrongly, Yu family village should be more than 10 miles north of Lu family village, which was the northernmost part of Lantian County. This village just happened to not belong to Lisa Schwan's fief, so it was no wonder that Lisa Schwan found this young man unfamiliar. Yu Dehang, why didn't you dodge when that burly man tried to chop you? Lisa Schwan smiled and asked. Yu Dehang's mouth twitched, and she bitterly smiled. To tell you the truth, Marquis, I didn't expect that guy to be so lawless, daring to kill someone on the street. I was caught off guard and couldn't escape even if I wanted to. When she said this, some of the commoners not far from them suddenly burst into laughter. Lisa Schwan also couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha, you are quite honest. There was one thing he didn't say, and that was that the warrior from before didn't really want to chop Yu Dehang and was only testing her. When his wind-chasing sword caught the warrior's blade, he understood, and it was because of this that he spared the warrior's life. I was wondering who it was. So it's the Marquis of Yongin. But even if you're a Marquis personally conferred by the Emperor, you still shouldn't smash my Chui family's door, right? While the two were talking, an upper-class lady wearing a purple fur coat walked out from the Chui family. She had a pair of phoenix eyes, and that upper-class lady came in front of Lisa Schwan and said in a cold voice. Lisa Schwan patted Yu Dehang's shoulder, indicating for him to leave, and then turned around to look at the upper-class lady. You're the one who sent the Chui family to kill the commoners? Chapter 1084. In front of the Chui residence. Two people who should not have interacted with each other in their lives were now facing each other, as though they were at each other's throats. Wang Shi hatefully said, "So what if it's me?" This bunch of unruly people gathered in front of the Chui residence to cause trouble. Can't we chase them away? If it was someone else, Wang Shi would have already ordered people to chase them away. But the person in front of her was Lisa Schwan. This name had appeared more than once in the Chui family. He made the two young masters of the Chui family. One was exiled to Cheongzhou, the other was chased back to Zhengzhou, but the Chui family's old grandfather still could not do anything to him. As such, Wang Shi had no choice but to deal with him carefully. Gathering people to cause trouble? What trouble did they cause? Lisa Schwan crossed his arms in front of his chest and asked while knowing the answer. Wang Shi snappily said, "What good things did they do? Marquis Yong and can just ask them. Why ask me?" Lisa Schwan laughed and casually said, "It's just spitting on the street. How big of a deal can it be? This street doesn't belong to the Chui family, right? Besides, if Madame Chui is really angry, Just let the people from Wu Ho government come and take them away. Why did you instigate your servants to maliciously harm people? If I was a step late, there would be people's blood splattered on the spot. The current emperor is ruling the country with benevolence, but your Chui family is so blatantly harming people's lives. You're not putting the emperor in your eyes. How should you be punished? Wang Shi frowned. Her face was so gloomy that water was about to drip out. She softly scolded, "Wan Jinggang, what did I tell you before? You can only chase people away. You can't intentionally harm people. What did you do?" The warrior surnamed Wan had a pig's face. He hurriedly explained to Wang Shi, "Madam, I'm innocent. This subordinate was just trying to scare that scholar. I didn't mean to take his life." Clap, clap, clap. Wan Jingang's voice fell, but Li Zixuan clapped his hands, only to hear him say, "Ha ha, act. Good acting. Madam Chui, in front of so many people, can you not act like this? Under the watchful eyes of so many people, can't you tell right from wrong?" Although he knew in his heart that Wan Jinggang really did not have the intention to kill Yu Dehang, he had to put the blame on Wan Jinggang, because this was the only way to reduce the scope of the war and avoid completely falling out with the Chui family. "Look, I'm helping you by beating up your men. Otherwise, if someone dies, your Chui family will have to go to court, and it won't end well with the emperor. Therefore, today's matter should end here." That was what it meant. Right now, Li Zixuan really didn't want to start a war with the Chui family. Yes, Wan Jinggang was spouting nonsense. Just now, his knife was about to chop Yu Dehang's head. How could it be just to scare her? That's right. That one fellow is trying to kill someone. The commoners cooperated and shouted behind Li Zixuan. Wang Shi clenched her teeth, secretly hating that Wan Jinggang really didn't know how to do things. If you want to kill someone, just do it secretly. But now he actually did it openly in front of the Chui family and was caught by Li Zixuan. This made the Chui family, who was originally in the right, instantly fall into a passive position. Audacious. You actually dare to gather in Chang and city to cause trouble. Quickly stop. Just as Wang Shi was unable to vent her anger, a large group of martial marquis suddenly appeared on the streets. The one leading them was actually Yuqi Jingda. The dignified, right martial marquis, General Wei, had personally come. Before he arrived, his voice was heard. Yuqi Jingda shouted loudly. Following his shout, the right martial marquis men immediately surrounded everyone in front of the Chui family's door. From the start of the matter till now, it had been close to half an hour before the martial marquis government people finally arrived. "Uncle Yuqi, you're here." Seeing an acquaintance, Li Zixuan clasped his hands in greeting. Yuqi Jingda softly made an N sound and didn't exchange too many pleasantries. With a businesslike expression, he said to Li Zixuan and Wang Shi, "Li Zixuan, this general received news that someone gathered here to fight. Is there such a thing?" Li Zixuan wasn't in a hurry to speak. Instead, he looked at Wang Shi with a faint smile. He believed that if Wang Shi wasn't stupid, she should know what to say. As expected, Wang Shi's expression changed. She then bowed towards Yuqi Jingda and said, replying to General Yuqi, it was the Chui family's people who didn't know any better and almost injured a commoner. This attracted the attention of the commoners. The Chui family will definitely restrain the servants in the future. And Madame Chui's meaning is that the Chui family's servants actually used weapons in Chang and city? Yuqi Jingda frowned and said unhappily, the Tang people revered martial arts. The imperial court didn't explicitly state that commoners weren't allowed to carry swords. But in Chang and city, openly using weapons was definitely not allowed. This was slapping Yuqi Jingda's face as the capital's public security bureau chief. Wang Shi quickly said, there was no large-scale use of weapons. It was just a servant and a commoner who had a dispute. General Yuqi, please don't be angry. Not only did Li Zixuan want to turn the matter into a small one, Wang Shi also wanted to, because she had previously admitted that Wan Jinggang was under her orders, and Li Zixuan had caught Wan Jingang's weakness of wanting to kill commoners in public. One must know that now was a time of peace. Li Er, this king, cherished the commoners very much. If one really looked into it, their Chui family wouldn't be able to gain any benefits from Li Er. As for the commoners, they had a fight with the Chui family servants today. Although the Chui family servants were a little domineering and deserved to be beaten, the cause of the matter was still because they came over to spit in front of the Chui family's door. Now that they could turn the matter into a small one, they could also accept it in their hearts. Moreover, in the process of the previous fight, they didn't suffer any losses. After all, such a good thing like beating up the Chui family servants and not being arrested by the officials didn't happen every day. No matter what, openly using weapons in Chong and City is definitely not allowed. Madam Chui, please hand that person over. I want to bring him back to the Wu Ho government for questioning. Yuqi Jingde looked around and muttered to himself for a while before speaking. Wang Shi was indignant, but she couldn't show it on her face. After a while, she said, General Yuqi, the Chui family will punish him severely after this matter. There's no need to trouble General. Yuqi Jingde's tiger eyes focused and said coldly, And Madam Chui doesn't intend to hand him over? Fine, then I won't force it. At most, old grandfather Chui will make another trip to the palace. The day before Chui Yunhan was exiled to Cheongzhou, Chui Zhenchuo personally went to the palace to plead with Li Er. Wang Shi's expression finally changed. After hesitating for a moment, she gritted her teeth and said, General Yuqi, please wait. The Chui family is willing to hand him over. At this point, in order to prevent the Chui family from getting into bigger trouble, Wang Shi could only abandon the rook to save the king. Chapter 1085. Take him away. In front of the Chui residence, seeing that Wang Shi had finally agreed, Yuqi Jingde ordered his subordinates. Yes, 2 soldiers of the Right Martial Marquis Guard immediately went forward to capture Wan Jinggang. Facing 2 master-level experts, Wan Jinggang did not dare to resist and obediently allowed himself to be captured. The rest of the commoners quickly disperse, or else we will take all of you back to Wu Ho government. Yuqi Jingde turned around to look at the commoners and said loudly, Disperse, disperse. The commoners had already started fighting. They had also seen the commotion, and after hearing Yuqi Jingde's words, they all dispersed. Yu Deheng cupped his hands towards Li Zishuan and said, Marquis, then this student will take his leave. Li Zishuan nodded and smiled, and next time don't be so straightforward. You won't be so lucky every time. Yu Deheng said awkwardly, This student will remember Marquis' teachings. Today's soul-stirring encounter might be unforgettable for his entire life. It was also the first time he truly understood Li Zishuan. This was a talent in both civil and martial arts, a true dragon and phoenix talent. From today onwards, his idol would completely become Li Zishuan and no longer the so-called 5 surnames 7 sex. After saying that, Yu Deheng turned around and left with the villagers of Yu family manor. In front of the Chui residence, which was bustling with noise and excitement. In an instant, only the people of Wu Ho government, Li Zishuan, Wang Shi, and the defeated soldiers of the Chui residence were left. Wang Shi glared at Li Zishuan with a sinister expression. Just as she was about to say something, she heard Yuqi Jingde say, Xiao Xian, quickly enter the palace. His Majesty has something to summon you. Wang Shi opened her mouth and secretly hated Yuqi Jingde for being such a busybody. Otherwise, the conflict between her and Li Zishuan would not have ended so easily. All right, this nephew will enter the palace right away. Li Zishuan was both happy and worried. He was happy that he was able to escape so quickly, which was far beyond his expectations. Before he came, he had already made preparations to be pestered endlessly by the Chui family. But he didn't think that things would go so smoothly. In the end, it was still because Yuqi Jingde was strong enough. Today, if the right Marquis Fu had been replaced with anyone else, Wang Shi probably wouldn't have given face. As for his worries, he was worried that Li Er had summoned him to the palace because of what had happened today. He had to think of a good excuse on the way there. Deheng, you're really lucky. You were actually saved by Marquis. And you can even talk so much with Marquis. You're the number one person in our village. A group of villagers walked out of Yinxing Gate, the east gate of Chang'an City. Someone in the group sighed with envy. Yu Dehang smiled and said, Uncle Zhong, please don't say that. I was so scared that I almost wet my pants. Besides, Marquis didn't come just to save me. He should have come to save all of us. If Marquis didn't come to intervene today, Uncle Zhong, do you think that Madame Cui of the Cui family would spare us? After she finished speaking, the commoners fell into silence. After a while, the burly man surnamed Zhong sighed and said, AI, Marquis is a good person, ah. I, old Zhong, have lived for decades and have seen many officials. But no matter if it's the previous dynasty or now, there is no official who loves the people as much as Marquis. The only pity is that our Yu family manor is too far north. Otherwise, it would have become Marquis fief long ago. As soon as he said that, many people agreed with him regretfully. Old Zhong is right. If our village could also be annexed to Marquis fief, that would be great. To meet such a master, don't talk about being an ox or a horse. Even if you want me to go through water and tread on fire, I will do it. Hey, why would Marquis want you to be an ox or a horse? Marquis is very good to the commoners in his fief. Yu Dehang shook her head and said, It's useless to say more. Marquis fief is now considered to be one of the top nobles in the Great Tang. If he wants to expand his fief, Marquis will have to make more contributions. Let's quickly go back. Imperial Palace, Lijiang Hall. Li Er came here after the morning court to enjoy the newly installed heating in the Imperial Palace with Zhang Sun. In the end, someone came to report that a large group of commoners had started fighting with the Cui family servants in front of the Cui residence. He frowned slightly and didn't say anything because he believed that Yuqi Jingda would be able to handle it himself. But not long after, the Imperial Guards came with another piece of news, saying that Li Zixuan had gone to the Cui residence and injured the Cui residence's guards. Only then did Li Er order Yuqi Jingda to think of a way to resolve the conflict and summon Li Zixuan to the palace. Your Majesty, this concubine is thinking that the commoners suddenly went to the Cui residence to cause trouble. Was it because someone was secretly instigating them? Empress Zhang Sun frowned and asked, Is Guanyin trying to say that Li Zixuan was secretly instigating the commoners to cause trouble in the Cui residence? Empress Zhang Sun nodded lightly and said, This concubine did suspect that. After all, the Duke of Yong'an's attitude towards the aristocratic families has never been good. Previously, the Snake King's assassination was directed at the Cui family. If not for your Majesty's mediation, I think he would have already killed his way to the Cui residence. Li Er held his chin and thought for a moment before shaking his head and saying, No. If this kid really wanted to use the commoners to deal with the Cui family, he definitely wouldn't have rushed to the Cui residence alone. Sigh, this kid sometimes has a heart of steel, but sometimes he's indecisive. This is a taboo for a commander. As intelligent as Li Er was, he immediately understood the crux of the problem. However, towards Li Zixuan's foolish action of not retreating behind the scenes and taking advantage of the situation, instead taking the lead and rushing to the front to confront the Cui family head-on, Li Er felt resentful towards Li Zixuan for not living up to his expectations. Although he did not intend to touch the Cui family at this juncture, he was still very happy to borrow the strength of the commoners to cause some trouble for the Cui family and reduce the Cui family's reputation among the commoners. However, because of Li Zixuan's momentary soft-heartedness and worry that the commoners would be injured, he rashly acted. Everything was ruined. If he wanted to form such an advantage in public opinion next time, it would not be easy. Your Majesty, humans are not saints. How can they be perfect? This concubine feels that this flaw of the Duke of Yong and is his true nature. It also shows that he values relationships and righteousness. Only such an upright official cannot be used by foreign countries and can achieve great things for the Great Tang. After hearing Li Er's words, Emperor Zhang Sun pondered for a moment and quickly understood the crux of the matter. She smiled faintly and said, "Your Majesty, the Duke of Yong, and has arrived at the Sweet Dew Hall." At this moment, an eunuch entered the hall and cupped his hands towards Lier. He's finally here." Lier's spirit jolted. He said to Empress Zhang's son, "Guanin's servant, please take a seat here. Zhen will go and teach that fellow a lesson. This official pays his respects to your Majesty." Within the Sweet Dew Hall, Li Zexuan was dressed in casual clothes and bowed towards Lier. Yuqi Jingde had spoken to him in a hurry, so Li Zexuan did not return home to change into his court attire. Instead, he rushed straight to the palace. "Dispense with the formalities." Lier's emotionless voice came from above. Li Zexuan straightened his body and raised his head. He saw Lier sitting on the seat of honor, glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. "You're getting more and more daring. You actually dared to smash the Chui family's door. If Chui Junchuo joins forces with the Shandong landowning households to deal with you, let's see how you deal with it." Lier's face was expressionless, but Li Zexuan could hear a hint of blame in his words. "Replying to your Majesty, no matter what the outcome is, this official does not regret what he has done today. The Chui family's matriarch instigated the family's warriors to use weapons against the common people. If this official had come one step later, there would have been casualties. This official does not regret it," Li Zexuan said in a low voice. You." Lier sighed. He stood up with his hands behind his back and walked down from above. "You're also a smart person. You should understand that right and wrong is no longer important. Now that you've smashed the Chui family's door, the Chui family that has stood tall for 1,000 years has been disgraced by you. Do you think they'll let this go? The scholars who rely on the Shandong landowning households account for almost half of the scholars in Great Tang. If the Chui family is determined to take revenge on you, these scholars will spit at you and tarnish your reputation. At that time, who would dare to come to your Yanwan College? Who would want to learn from your engineering? Who would want to buy things from your workshop?" Li Zexuan furrowed his brows. He had only thought that the Chui clan would send some assassins to take revenge on him. He had never thought that they would use public opinion to tarnish his reputation. However, he was not afraid. When it came to creating public opinion, no one in the Great Tang was better than him. "Your Majesty, this world belongs to your Majesty, not the Chui family. It's hard to say if the Chui family can unite with the other landowning households. But even if the landowning households of Shandong work together, this official is not afraid of them. This official knows that your Majesty will support this official, and the common people will also support this official." Li Zexuan clasped his hands and said in a clear voice. Lier glared at this guy in annoyance. He thought to himself, "Am I so easily tied to the same boat as you? In your dreams." But thinking about it carefully, he had to be on this pirate ship, even if he did not want to, because the royal family and the aristocratic families were destined to never walk together. Empty words are useless. Do you have any countermeasures now? Lier paused and said. Li Zexuan clasped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, this official does not have any countermeasures. Different situations call for different measures. The Chui family has not made a move yet. Even if this official has a countermeasure, it is useless. I can only wait until the time comes to deal with it." Lier fell silent. The hall fell into silence. It was so quiet that one could even hear people's breathing. Li Zexuan lowered his head and began to count ants. If Oli did not ask him, he would not speak. Anyway, this kind of scheming was not something he liked and was not good at. He would leave it to old Li to slowly weigh the pros and cons. After a long time, Lier raised his head and said, "Before the Turks are destroyed, I do not want the aristocratic families to fall into chaos. Do you understand?" Lier knew very well that today's matter could not be blamed on Li Zexuan. However, if Li Zexuan and the Chui family went to war, he would have to make a choice and help Li Zexuan deal with the Chui family. However, when that time came, other than the Wang family of Taiyuan, the other aristocratic families would definitely join forces. This would be very disadvantageous for Lier. For the Tang Empire, it would also be an extremely serious internal friction. Li Zexuan's heart moved. He replied, "This official obeys the decree. Good. Lier nodded his head in satisfaction. Then he smiled casually and said, "The heating that you taught the general is very good. You should be rewarded, but now that you've made such a big mess for me, forget it. You can go back first. Remember what I said to you." It was not that he did not want to reward Li Zishuan, but it was mainly because Li Zishuan had just destroyed the Chui family. If he gave him a reward, wouldn't it be a blatant mockery? If the Chui family were to get angry at this time and fight to the death, the imperial court would be in trouble. Li Zishuan curled his lips and thought that Li Er was stingy. However, after thinking carefully, he could understand Li Er's difficulties. Thus, he did not say anything and left. "Papa, I'm so angry. I'm so angry. Li Zishuan is too much." In the backyard of the Chui residence, Wang Shi smashed a vase in exasperation and roared angrily. The maids and servants in the house all lowered their heads and did not dare to breathe loudly. After a while, seeing that everything that could be smashed on the table and cabinet had been smashed, the old butler of the Chui residence came forward and cupped his hands. "Madam, please calm down. Anger is harmful to the body." Bang! Calm down. This Li Zishuan first forced Xianji back to Zhengzhou, then caused Yunhan to be sent to Cheongzhou. Now, he actually came to destroy the Chui residence. In all these years, when has the Chui family suffered such humiliation? If the old master was still in Chong, and would he allow him to be so impudent? Wang Shi slammed the table and said angrily. Butler Wang lowered his head and said carefully, "Madam, the most important thing now is not to be angry with the Marquis of Yong, but to reduce the impact of this matter on the Chui family as soon as possible. In this old servant's opinion, we should donate a sum of money to the Warm Tang Foundation as soon as possible. Otherwise, the Marquis of Yong might use this as an excuse to make a fuss. When the time comes and Tang daily spreads the news, I'm afraid our Chui family's reputation will be ruined." It had to be said that the old butler's foresight was very accurate. Today's matter, other than hurting the Chui family's face, more importantly, it dealt a considerable blow to the Chui family's reputation. The reason why the 5 families and 7 noble families could have their current status was mainly because of the reputation they had accumulated over many years among the common people, especially among the scholars. If the Chui family were to have a bad reputation, then in the future, the Chui family would lose the support of many scholars. This was a huge matter that would hurt the foundation of the Chui family. Donate money? In your dreams. That Warm Tang Foundation might be under the name of the imperial court and the empress's name and name, but who doesn't know that the real person in charge is Li Zishuan's family? This brat wants to use such underhanded means to force the Chui family to donate money. No way. Wang Shi, who was in a fit of anger, refused without hesitation. "Madam, but, Butler, you don't have to say any more. I've already made up my mind. Not only will the Chui family not donate money, today's matter will not be settled so easily." The old butler still wanted to say something, but Wang Shi did not want to hear any more. She threw down this sentence and left immediately. The old butler opened his mouth and was filled with helplessness. He could only secretly pray that the old master of the Chui family, Chui Junchuo, would receive the news as soon as possible and rush back to preside over the situation. Chapter 1086. The old butler of the Chui residence was right. In the afternoon, Li Zishuan directly went to the workshop to discuss with Ma Zhou whether they should publish the conflict between the commoners and the Chui family in the Great Tang Daily. "Marquis, forgive me for being blunt, but today's incident has already caused a huge uproar. There are definitely many people who know about it. Moreover, Marquis, you have already smashed the door of the Chui family. Even if we don't publish this news, the Chui family won't owe us a favor. Moreover, the people who know about it will misunderstand that we are jackals of the same tribe as the Chui family and deliberately hide the truth. In this way, it will be a big blow to the credibility of Tang Daily." After Ma Zhou listened to Li Zishuan's explanation seriously, he pondered for a moment and said, "That's right. Li Zixuan nodded and said, Brother Ma's words make sense. If that's the case, then tomorrow's Tang Daily will publish the news of the Chui family's donation and being attacked by the people. Ma Zhou's eyes flashed with excitement. He was born in a poor family and didn't have a good impression of the aristocratic families. If Li Zixuan wanted to fall out with the aristocratic families, he would definitely support it from the bottom of his heart. Hearing this, he hurriedly said, Yes, Marquis. Li Zixuan thought for a while and added, But there's one thing you have to pay attention to. The news has to be realistic. We only need to report the facts and not exaggerate. Li Zixuan had listened to Li Er's previous words. He also felt that the current Tang Empire should be united against the outside world and not have too much internal friction. If they were to exaggerate and smear the Chui family in the newspaper, it might expand the conflict and damage the credibility of the Tang Daily. Ma Zhou replied, I understand. If the Chui family wants to take revenge on us, what do you think we should do? The conversation between Li Zixuan and Ma Zhou lasted until the sky turned dark. As the future prime minister of the Tang Empire, Ma Zhou had a lot of unique ideas in terms of strategy. After this conversation, Li Zixuan had some ideas about the future path of the battle with the Chui family. At night, Li Zixuan stayed in the Yinshan residence. At 9:45 p.m., the study in the residence was still lit by candlelight. Suddenly, a big hand appeared outside the pitch-black door of the study. The big hand knocked on the door, and then a voice. Marquis, I have something to report. Judging from the voice, it was Pang Feiji. Silence. After a while, Li Zixuan's voice came from inside the room. Come in and talk. Pang Feiji pushed the door open and entered. He saw Li Zixuan half leaning on the armchair with an unknown book in his hand. He took out a small booklet from his sleeve and handed it to Li Zixuan. Marquis, you asked me to investigate whether the Chui family had done anything illegal. After a few months of investigation, I found some things. Marquis, please take a look. At that time, Chui Yunhan brought a group of students to the Li family to cause trouble. Coincidentally, Li Zixuan had just destroyed the 7 cultivators sect. Under the combination of the two, Li Zixuan felt that the Chui family might be behind the 7 cultivators sect. Chui Yunhan innocently took the blame and was exiled to Cheongzhou. The eldest son of the Chui family in Qinghe, Chui Xuanji, was also sent back to his hometown in Zhengzhou by Chui Junchuo. Li Zixuan originally wanted to kill Chui Yunhan. However, Li Er didn't allow him to kill Chui Yunhan for the sake of the overall situation. He could only send Pang Feiji to secretly investigate the Chui family's illegal activities. After such a long time, Li Zixuan had almost forgotten about it. He didn't expect Pang Feiji to suddenly bring it up today. His gaze hardened as he looked deeply at Pang Feiji. Then, he took the booklet from Pang Feiji's hand and flipped through it. In the first year of Wuda, when the world was just settled, the Chui family cooperated with the local government in Zhengzhou and took over 30,000 mu of land from the local people. This caused thousands of people to have no land to farm and become homeless. In the 7th month of the 3rd year of Wuda, the current emperor killed Wang Shichong in Luoyang. Due to the war, Luoyang city was severely damaged and lacked order. The Chui family took the opportunity to take over 40% of the shops in Luoyang city and forcibly expropriated 70,000 mu of land from some of the people at a low price. Countless people in Luoyang city sold their sons and daughters. The Chui family took advantage of the situation and robbed them. They didn't spend a single copper coin and took away nearly 100 beautiful women from the people. From the 4th year of Wuda to the 9th year of Wuda, the Chui family's direct descendants and branch descendants have been taking over the land in Henan province. Sometimes, there were even cases of people bullying people. There was evidence that a total of 16 poor peasant girls were raped. Most of these girls couldn't bear the humiliation and committed suicide. Due to the Chui family's power and the fact that the victims' families didn't report it, the local government turned a blind eye and allowed the Chui family's descendants to continue their evil deeds. Reading up to this point, Li Zixuan's face was filled with unconcealable anger. Pang Feiji, who was standing beside him, could even feel that the air in the study room had become colder. Murderous intent. Pang Feiji, who used to be a servant in Wuhou government, knew that this was the murderous aura of an expert. He had felt it before when he was beside Yuqi Jingda. He didn't dare to look directly at Li Zixuan's face and quickly lowered his head. In the 9th year of Wuda, after Cui Shanfu got drunk, he took over a servant named Ninyu. After that, Ninyu became pregnant with his child. When Cui Shanfu found out, he wanted to take her as his concubine. When Wang Shi heard the news, she was furious and ordered people to tie up the servant, Ninyu, and torture her to death. According to some rumors from the servants of the Cui family, every night that year, the cries of women and the cries of babies could be heard. After that, the Cui family even specially invited an eminent monk to perform 2 rituals. At this point, Li Zixuan had finished reading the contents of the small booklet. His face was filled with frost. After a long silence, he opened his mouth and asked bitterly, "What is torture?" Pang Feiji was shocked because Li Zixuan's voice had become hoarse. It sounded like a demon from the abyss. In this cold and quiet night, it was so horrifying. Inexplicably shivering, Pang Feiji hurriedly cupped his fist and said, Marquis, this torture is to turn a person into a human swine. First, they chop off the limbs, dig out the eyes, inject copper into the ears to make them deaf. Then, they pour poison down the throat and cut off the tongue to make them unable to speak. After that, they still have to cut off the nose, shave their hair, and finally throw them into the latrine to let them die slowly. Bang! Just as Pang Feiji finished speaking, Li Zixuan couldn't take it anymore. He angrily slammed the table and stood up, saying coldly, "What a Cui family! What a vicious and venomous woman!" Pang Feiji instantly felt a bone-piercing chill. Then he saw the table beside Li Zixuan turn into a pile of powder. Chapter 1087. Swine or swine was a pig. Human swine was a form of torture that turned people into pigs. Different from death by dismemberment, human swine was a form of punishment used in court battles. The ancients often said that no poison was a great man, and the most poisonous was a woman's heart. In the imperial palace, there had always been a lot of fights between concubines. Once a woman with no sense of security gained power, her revenge would be more ruthless than a man's. Human swine was invented by Empress Liu. When Liu Bang became the emperor, he gradually stopped favoring the old Empress Liu and started favoring the peerless beauty Madame Qi. Empress Liu didn't dare to do anything because Liu Bang was in power. After Liu Bang passed away, Empress Liu took power. Her jealousy couldn't be erased, so she sent people to catch Madame Qi, beat her severely, dug out her eyes, cut off her limbs, shaved her hair, and finally threw her into the toilet. Even so, Empress Liu was still not satisfied. In the end, she called her son, the Hui Emperor, to see the human swine. The Hui Emperor had never heard of the name human swine. He was very curious, so he followed the eunuch out of the palace and went to see it. The eunuch took him to a toilet, opened the door, and said to the Hui Emperor, "The human swine is in the toilet." The Hui Emperor looked into the toilet and saw a human body. It had no hands, no feet, and no eyeballs. There were only 2 bloody holes. The body could still move a little. It opened its mouth wide, but no sound could be heard. After looking at it, he was shocked and scared. He couldn't help but shrink his body and ask the eunuch, "What is it?" The eunuch didn't dare to say. When the Hui Emperor returned to the palace and forced the eunuch to say it, the eunuch said, "Madame Qi." Before the eunuch could say anything, the Hui Emperor was so scared that he almost fainted. Not long after, he passed away. Marquis, calm down. In the study room of the Yunshan residence, Pang Feiji looked at the wooden table that had turned into sawdust. His pupils could not help but shrink. Ever since he had followed Li Zixuan, he had never seen Li Zixuan so angry. Pang Feiji, who was trembling with fear, hurriedly cupped his fists and comforted him. Calm down, calm down. Asked the mother and son who were tortured to death whether they could calm down or not. People say that the big families are the most ruthless, but I didn't expect the Chui family to be so ruthless and dirty. They were born as human beings, yet they are human beings in vain. Li Zixuan's face was full of anger. At this moment, he really regretted not killing Wang Shi earlier in the day. That servant girl, named Ninyu, was originally a victim, but in the end, she still had to suffer a second persecution from Wang Shi. Moreover, this kind of persecution was really not something a human could do. It was too light to describe Wang Shi as a venomous woman. Earlier in the day, Lier had told him to bear with it and wait for the Great Tang to resolve its external threat before dealing with the aristocratic clans. But at this time, Li Zixuan really couldn't take it anymore. He felt that the longer he endured, the more the maidservant who was cruelly killed by Madame Wang in the netherworld would be able to rest in peace. Hell was empty, and the devils were in the human realm. Li Zixuan couldn't tolerate a demon like the Wang Consortium, nor did he want to. Marquis, the Chui family has a deep foundation and has many connections with other families. You have to think twice. A complicated look flashed across Pang Feiji's eyes. He cupped his fists towards Li Zixuan and said, Li Zixuan suddenly realized that something was wrong. He turned around abruptly and stared at Pang Feiji with a burning gaze. He stared at Pang Feiji for a long time until Pang Feiji was at a loss for what to do. Only then did he open his mouth and say, Feiji, this information, with just the people in your hands, could you have found it? A trace of undetectable panic flashed across Pang Feiji's eyes. Marquis, if you think that I have treated you well, please tell me the truth. Li Zixuan turned around and said coldly with his hands behind his back. Pang Feiji's body trembled. The words that were about to leave his mouth could no longer be said. After a moment of silence, he said in a low voice, I am guilty. This information was found out by me with the help of the right Marquis household. Then when did you find out about this? Li Zixuan said expressionlessly. It had been almost half a year since the last time he ordered Pang Feiji to find out about this information. He did not believe that Pang Feiji just happened to find out about this information in these few days. Marquis, I found out about this 3 months ago. Pang Feiji's expression changed. He hesitated for a moment and finally gritted his teeth and said, 3 months ago. Hearing this, Li Zixuan's eyes flashed with a strange light. He turned around and looked directly at Pang Feiji. He asked word by word, Then why didn't you tell me about this 3 months ago? What are your intentions? Pang Feiji's face instantly turned pale. He hurriedly knelt down on one knee and said, Marquis, I am guilty. I'm asking you why you didn't tell me about this earlier. Don't King kowtow and beg for forgiveness and pretend to be pitiful. Li Zixuan was in a fit of anger. Seeing Pang Feiji like this, he was burning with rage. He could not help but violently smash the book in his hand towards Pang Feiji's head. Pang Feiji could have dodged, but he did not. The book that was originally not heavy, under the influence of Li Zixuan's angry strike, instantly left a big bump on Pang Feiji's head. Marquis, Pang Feiji opened his mouth, but did not say anything. It was Uncle Yuchi who ordered you to do this, right? The room was silent for a long time. Li Zixuan suddenly opened his mouth. In his tone, there was a trace of sadness. It was the kind of sadness that came from being betrayed by a friend or brother. Pang Feiji was as if struck by lightning. He was stunned for a while and finally said, Marquis' guess is correct. However, General Yuchi only suggested it. In the end, I made the decision not to tell Marquis in advance. Please punish me, Marquis. Why? Li Zixuan's voice gradually turned cold. It was so cold that Pang Feiji felt like crying. Yes, he felt like crying. Replying to Marquis, when I received this news, General Yuchi told me in person that if you, Marquis, were to know the contents of the book, based on your usual kind heart, you would definitely be furious and kill the Chui family regardless of the consequences. At that time, Marquis, your wings were not fully grown. Moreover, You had just established Yanhuang College. I'm afraid that your position in the Emperor's heart was not stable. If the Chui family were to fight back with all their strength, it would very likely cause you, Marquis, to suffer a great loss. Moreover, at that time, Marquis would not have the time to take care of Yanhuang College. Therefore, General Yuchi advised me to wait until the time was right to pass this news to Marquis. Ever since Feiji had followed Marquis, everyone knew that Marquis treated his brothers well. Marquis treated his brothers as family. This kindness, even if Feiji were to die 1,000 times, he would not be able to repay it. From the beginning to the end, Feiji only hoped that Marquis and his family would be safe and prosperous for generations to come. He had never been disloyal to Marquis. Feiji also knew that Yanhuang College was a foundation that Marquis valued greatly. In order to prevent Marquis from recklessly attacking the Chui family, and also to allow Marquis to focus on developing the college, Feiji acted on his own initiative and suppressed this information until today. Feiji, please punish me for not reporting it. Chapter 1088. You mean to say that now is the right time to make a move on the Chui family? Pang Feiji's words of loyalty touched Li Zixuan, but at the same time, he was also a little angry. Superiors didn't like their subordinates to make decisions on their own. Although Li Zixuan came from the modern world and received the education of everyone is equal, he still didn't like others making decisions for him. It could be said that if Pang Feiji's actions were placed in other big families, he would have been sentenced to death by the head of the family, although he was also considering the long-term interests of the family. Li Zixuan couldn't be so cold-blooded, but he was also very unhappy with Pang Feiji's decision. The main thing was that when he thought of the servant girl who was turned into a human swine by Wang Shi, his heart was filled with anger. Marquis, it's the people who offended the Chui family today that made me feel that the Chui family is currently divided. On Marquis's side, the people's hearts can be used. Compared to the past, Marquis's chances of winning are definitely much higher now. Pang Feiji knelt on the ground and cupped his fists. Li Zixuan laughed lightly and said, "This is also what your General Yuchi told you, right?" He called him General Yuchi and not Uncle Yuchi like before. Obviously, he was very uncomfortable with Yuchi Jingda's arrangement of Pang Feiji behind his back. Pang Feiji understood the meaning behind Li Zixuan's words. He said with a bitter face, "Marquis, these words were indeed said by General Yuchi to me. The general also said that if Marquis and the Chui family were to start a war, the Yuchi family is willing to live and die with Marquis, advance and retreat together." Yuchi Jingda was just a blacksmith in his early years. He didn't have a good impression of the aristocratic families. Moreover, he had always thought highly of Li Zixuan, a junior with limitless potential. Therefore, on this matter, Yuchi Jingda would unconditionally stand on Li Zixuan's side. When Li Zixuan heard that Yuchi Jingda was willing to live and die together, advance and retreat together, his expression finally loosened a little. When Pang Feiji saw that Li Zixuan did not say anything, he quickly added, "Marquis, regarding this matter, your subordinate acted on his own initiative and is indeed guilty. However, this has nothing to do with General Yuchi. When I learned of the Chui family's actions over the years, your subordinate also hesitated whether or not to inform Marquis. Enough. I know everything." Li Zixuan waved his hand and interrupted Pang Feiji. He paused and said expressionlessly, "You have participated in the military training of the academy. You should know that it is the duty of a soldier to obey orders. Regardless of whether your intentions were good or bad, your actions make you unfit to be a good soldier. From today onwards, you are no longer this Marquis personal guard. Captain." The position of captain is temporarily vacant. If you make the same mistake again in the future, this Marquis will not tolerate it. Do you understand? Li Zixuan's words took a huge turn. Pang Feiji thought that Li Zixuan was going to expel him from the personal guard. He was so scared that a layer of cold sweat appeared on his back. His face turned pale in an instant. When he heard the second half of the sentence, he could not help but sigh in relief. He could accept any form of punishment, but he did not want to leave the Leaf family. Thank you, Marquis, for your mercy. Your subordinate will definitely not make the same mistake again. Pang Feiji cupped his fists and said loudly. His tone was filled with the joy of surviving a disaster. Enough. You may leave. Yes, sir. After Pang Feiji left, Li Zixuan sat alone in the study room. He closed his eyes and pondered. After a long time, he heard a long sigh from the room. The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind will not stop. I did not want to make a big deal out of this, but the spirits of hell did not agree, nor did the people of the world. This time, I really have to defy the decree. The next day, the headlines on Datong Daily became a hot topic among the people of Chong. The Chui family of Qinghe County did not donate. Angry citizens blocked their door and almost lost their lives. The Chui family was blocked. When did this happen? Why didn't I know about it? TSK. Wang Huaihua. Didn't you know about the huge commotion yesterday? What commotion? I went out of the city yesterday. Hey, what commotion? Don't you know how to read the newspapers? It's written clearly on there. Yo, so the Chui family never donated money to the Nguyen Tang Foundation. Isn't that too stingy? Although I'm not rich, I still donated 500 copper coins. No wonder the Chui family was blocked. If I was in the city yesterday, I would have spat in front of the Chui family's door. Don't brag. Didn't you see that a scholar was almost hacked to death by the Chui family's guards yesterday? This Chui family is too much. Not only did they not donate money, they even dared to hack people in public. Thank goodness the Duke of Yong'an arrived in time. Rich but not benevolent, two-faced, that's exactly what the Chui family is like. What kind of family is this? They're even worse than us commoners who have never read the books of the saints. That brat of mine is always thinking about how he can rely on the Chui family and marry a girl of the 5 surnames to bring glory to his ancestors. What the hell? I'm going to beat him up when I get back. Rely on the Chui family? Marry a girl of the 5 surnames? How can it compare to the glory of getting into Yanhuan College and becoming a student of the Duke of Yong'an? Old Wang, you're right. I heard that Mu Lao San from Stone Village used to be so poor that he didn't even have a good meal. But after his son got into Yanhuan College, the landlord in his village even wanted to marry his daughter to his son. Unknowingly, the commoners' values had changed slightly. The status of the 5 surnames and 7 great clans in the past was now plummeting in their hearts. Silent nourishment. Not only did it refer to the spring rain, but it also referred to human kindness. Li Zixuan's good deeds for the commoners this year were engraved in everyone's hearts. Compared to the Chui family, Li Zixuan represented justice, and the people's will more. Now that the negative news about the Chui family was out, the commoners directly voted with their feet and stood on Li Zixuan's side without thinking. You bunch of foolish commoners only know how to listen to slander. The Chui family has been glorious for 1,000 years. Who knows how many good deeds they've done and how many poor people they've helped? How can a small Duke of Yong'an compare? A group of commoners were loudly discussing the Chui family when a middle-aged scholar suddenly passed by. After hearing their conversation, the middle-aged scholar couldn't help but speak out in dissatisfaction. TSK, you say that the Chui family has done good deeds, then how many can you list? I've heard people say that the Chui family's disciples bullied people in Hunan. That's right. The Chui family is rich, but not benevolent. Everyone knows that. But you're here speaking up for the Chui family. I think you're in cahoots with them? I was wondering who it was. Isn't this the Chui family's right-hand man, Mr. Zhu Wentao? No wonder you're speaking up for the Chui family. Speaking against your conscience. To think that you're a scholar. Bah! Beat him up. The scholars related to the Chui family used to be high and mighty existences, but at this moment, they were completely despised and became street rats. The storm of public opinion quickly spread from the commoners to the circle of scholars. At Yanhuan College, the students were sending warmth to the poor as they discussed. Little Ku, you say that Yamacho is too mean. They didn't even call us to fight. If we, the 2nd Brigade, go, who can stop the Chui family's dogs? Chung Chumo, said casually to Li Ku with an unknown grass in his mouth. They had all read the newspaper when they were eating in the morning. Speaking of which, what this guy said made some sense. Since the 2nd Brigade's mission was to transport coal stoves, honeycomb briquettes, and clothes, when they were selecting members, they had picked some strong and healthy students. Compared to the members of the other brigades, the 2nd Brigade's members were undoubtedly much stronger. Lika rolled his eyes. After being together for a long time, he knew that Chung Chumo had a violent gene in his bones. He said angrily, "Chonyo, don't you understand what Yamacho is trying to do? He doesn't want anyone to get hurt, or else he wouldn't have gone personally. Of course, he wouldn't let us go." Sigh. Yamacho smashed the Chui family's door this time, and I feel that the Chui family will not let this matter rest. Yamacho is probably in trouble. I didn't expect the Chui family to be so arrogant. Sun Ziffin patted his horse's butt and sighed. Ching Chumo pursed his lips and said, "TSK, Ziffin, do you only know what kind of people the Chui family is? I heard that Chui Shanfu had caused trouble for Yamacho more than once. Luckily, he was sent to Lingnan, or else he would be impeaching Yamacho in court." Sun Ziffin spat out a mouthful of saliva and said, "Bah, what bullshit 5 surnames and 7 sex. I used to want to marry a girl with 5 surnames to bring glory to my ancestors. Now, I only want to marry a girl with 5 surnames to be my concubine." Lika laughed. "Ha ha. Ziffin, aren't you afraid of biting your tongue?" In a restaurant in Chong'an City, a few young people were sitting together and eating while discussing. "Brother Wong, this Chui family is too much. They are rich and heartless just because they have 5 surnames, and they even killed people on the street. They have no respect for the law, and we, the disciples of the saints, should hate them." That's right. The Chui family has been glorious for thousands of years, and they are the leader of the scholars, attracting countless talents to join them. But their current actions are not worthy of their position, and they are hated by everyone. I heard that Brother Chow wants to join the Chui family in a few days, so I have to go and persuade him. Yes, that's right. That's right. Anyone who associates with such a Chui family will be despised by the world. I have a good friend who joined the Chui family 2 years ago, and I have to persuade him to leave the Chui family. As the saying goes, repent and be saved. That's right. People like us who have diligently studied the books of the sages should be deeply righteous. At this moment, no matter whether these scholars supported the Chui family or not, they all expressed their opposition to the Chui family's actions without exception. This had nothing to do with the academic faction, because the sacred knowledge they studied also taught them to be kind to others. Inside the Chui mansion, the old housekeeper was holding the latest issue of Tang Daily, and said to Wang Shi worriedly, "Madam, this is bad. Marquis Yong and really published yesterday's incident in Tang Daily, and now the people in the city are saying that the Chui family is rich but heartless." Wang Shi took the newspaper, and her expression suddenly changed. She said coldly, "Umph, this kid is really despicable, and he only knows how to stab people in the back. Since he is heartless, then don't blame me for being heartless. Housekeeper, tell the gentleman in the residence to immediately write articles attacking Lisa Xuan. I want to completely ruin this kid's reputation." The old housekeeper said anxiously, "Madam, this old servant thinks that the best thing to do now is to donate some money to the Warm Tang Foundation so that we can stop the people's mouths. Otherwise, the Chui family's 1,000 years of reputation will be destroyed." "Shut up." Wang Shi's expression suddenly became ferocious, and she roared, "Shut up. Let the Chui family give money to that kid. Don't even think about it. Last time, the Chui family was tricked by that kid, and until now, we still haven't earned back the capital of 3,000 strings of coins. You want me to donate money? No way. Oof. In my opinion, you should be the one to shut up." At this moment, an old but energetic voice came from outside the house. Wang Shi's face turned pale, but the old housekeeper's eyes lit up with joy. He quickly turned around and bowed. "Greetings, old master. Greetings, father." Wang Shi took a few deep breaths and bowed as well. That's right. The person outside was the Chui family's old master, Chui Junchuo. The old man received the news and rushed back from the manor outside the city early in the morning. Oof. If I didn't come back, would the Chui family have been ruined by you? Chui Junchuo walked into the house, and with the help of a maid, he sat on the sandalwood chair at the head of the table. Then, he glared at Wang Shi and said angrily. Wang Shi quickly bowed and said, "Father, please calm down. This is all because of Li Zixuan. It has nothing to do with me." Bang! Chui Junchuo slammed the table. Although he was old, he slammed it hard. Wang Shi was so scared that she didn't dare to say another word. Then let me ask you, why did you order Wan Jingang and the others to kill the people yesterday? The capital is under the feet of the emperor. Who gave you the courage to use your weapons? Do you think the Chui family is still the Chui family from 10 years ago? Also, why didn't you send someone to donate money to the Tang Foundation after the people left yesterday? Is that money more important? Or is the Chui family's reputation more important? Why don't you ask around and see if the other families are secretly laughing at us? You short-sighted thing. Shanfu marrying you is really a misfortune for the Chui family. These words were a bit harsh. Wang Shi could order people around all these years because she was the Chui family's legal wife. Now that she heard Chui Junchuo's words, her face immediately turned pale. "Father, I know my mistake. I know my mistake. Please calm down." Chui Junchuo snorted and hurriedly took 2 deep breaths. It was obvious that he was tired after saying so much. At this time, he ignored Wang Shi and looked at the old housekeeper. "Wang Yong, go to the accounts room and withdraw 2,000 strings of coins. Donate it to the Tang Foundation now." The old housekeeper hurriedly replied, "Yes, grandfather." Chui Junchuo looked at Wang Shi and was silent for a while. Then he said, "Let's put aside the grudge between the Chui family and Li Zixuan for now. When the storm calms down, I will settle the score with him. You stay at home obediently and don't ruin things." "Yes, father." Chapter 1089. Marquis, this person's mouth is very tight. From yesterday until now, he hasn't said anything. General Yuchi said that he would be sent to the Supreme Court tomorrow. In a dark little room in the Right Marshal Marquis mansion, Wan Jingang's hands and feet were tied, and he was hung on a beam. His hair was disheveled, and he was in a very sorry state. A soldier of the Right Marshal Marquis mansion was currently explaining the situation to Li Zixuan in a low voice. The Right Marshal Marquis mansion did not have a prison, so Wan Jingang could only be temporarily locked up in this little room. The Supreme Court of the Tang Dynasty, as well as the various prefectures and counties, all had prisons. The Ministry of Justice, the Supreme Court, and the Imperial Censorate were the 3 major judicial organs of the Tang Dynasty. The Supreme Court was the central judicial organ of the Tang Dynasty. It was responsible for investigating the crimes committed by the central officials, as well as cases of imprisonment in the capital. The Supreme Court's trials usually took the form of a direct trial. Therefore, the Tang Dynasty followed the tradition of the northern and southern dynasties and set up the Supreme Court prison as a place to detain criminals. As the central prison, the Supreme Court prison was mainly used to detain officials who committed crimes and important crimes in the capital. Therefore, Wan Jingang would ultimately be sent to the Supreme Court. Apart from the Supreme Court, the Imperial Censorate of the Tang Dynasty also had a prison. At the beginning of the Tang Dynasty, the Imperial Censorate's main function was to monitor the situation. But sometimes, according to the Emperor's edict, they would carry out a trial of a criminal official and directly participate in the trial. On the other hand, the Ministry of Justice, as one of the 3 departments, was not an independent judicial organ. It did not set up a prison, nor did it set up a warden. But the Ministry of Justice was the highest authority to manage and monitor the prison affairs of the entire country. No matter if it was the Supreme Court or the Imperial Censorate, they all had to report to the Ministry of Justice before the 25th day of every month. Li Zixuan frowned and said, "Is there any torture?" Asking this kind of question showed that he had watched too many period dramas in his previous life. As expected, the soldier's expression changed, and he hurriedly looked around. After seeing that there was no one else, he hurriedly said, "Marquis, our right Marshal Marquis Mansion does not have the right to use torture. Every time we hand a criminal over to the Supreme Court, they will check if there are any traces of torture. If they discover that we use torture, they will definitely find trouble with General Yuchi." Wan Jinggang, who was hung on the beam, had a mocking smile on his face. It was obvious that this fellow had nothing to fear. "Oomph. Go get a wooden bucket. Then send someone to fetch a syringe from this Marquis's estate. Just tell Steward Wang directly. He will definitely understand." Li Zishuan's face turned cold as he instructed the soldier. The soldier did not understand and asked, "Marquis, what do you want the wooden bucket and the needle for?" Li Zishuan smiled coldly and said, "Since I can't torture him, then I'll give him acupuncture. Don't worry, this wound is smaller than an ant. The people of the Supreme Court won't be able to see it." The soldier still didn't understand. "Marquis, why are you giving this guy acupuncture?" A devilish smile appeared on Li Zishuan's face as he said, "This person's body has blood vessels everywhere, and these blood vessels carry the blood of the human body. In a while, this Marquis will insert this needle into his blood vessels, and the blood in his body will flow drop by drop into the barrel. When the barrel is full, he will only have one breath left, and no one will be able to detect the wound. Don't you think it's very satisfying?" Woo! The soldier couldn't help but shiver, and then subconsciously retreated 2 steps, maintaining a safe distance from Li Zishuan. He then cupped his fist and said, "Ho, Marquis, this little one will go and find you a wooden bucket and syringe." Finishing, he left as if he was escaping, because Yuchi Jingda had instructed them yesterday that Li Zishuan was here. No matter what he instructed them, they must do it, as long as they don't tear down the Marquis government. Wan Jinggang, who was hung on the beam, his face was filled with fear. The scene that Li Zishuan described was too terrifying. He opened his eyes wide and shook his head vigorously. No. Marquis Yong, and you're a Marquis personally conferred by the Emperor. You using private punishment is against the law. When the time comes, the Chui family will not let you off." Chui family. Li Zishuan sneered and looked at Wan Jinggang with ridicule. "You are now just an abandoned son of the Chui family. Do you think the Chui family will care about your life and death? Oh no, it should be said that the Chui family only wants you dead, not alive. You must know that only dead people can keep secrets the best." Wan Jinggang refused to believe. "No, I was recruited into the Chui family by the old grandfather. When he returns to Chong, and he will definitely think of a way to save me." "Old grandfather? You mean Chui Junshuo? Where's he now?" Li Zishuan's gaze congealed as he asked. Wan Jinggang suddenly came to his senses. He seemed to have confessed without being pressed. He immediately shut his mouth and did not say another word. Li Zishuan saw the situation and sneered. "Humph. Looks like you still haven't recognized the reality. In a while, I will let you bleed to wake you up." Wan Jinggang clenched his teeth. "Humph. Let me bleed then. Do you think the amount of blood Wan Jinggang, have bled these few years is not enough?" He was obviously strong in appearance, but weak in reality. Li Zishuan was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. After a while, the soldier from earlier brought a wooden bucket and placed it next to Wan Jinggang. Li Zishuan ordered, "Use a black cloth to cover his eyes. I am afraid that he will not be able to take it and will scare himself to death." "Yes, Marquis." The soldier and Wan Jinggang shuddered. They secretly thought that Li Zishuan was really ruthless. After a while, the soldier pulled a piece of black cloth out of nowhere and covered Wan Jinggang's eyes. Li Zishuan personally cut. Oh no, it was a needle. Fortunately, he was tall and could stand on the ground and directly insert the needle into Wan Jinggang's arm. Facing Li Zishuan, a martial arts master, Wan Jinggang did not make any unnecessary struggle. This was because he knew that Li Zishuan had thousands of ways to make him lose the ability to struggle. At this time, He only felt that his arm was stung by a bug. It was not painful, so he sneered. Oomph, I thought it would hurt a lot. This is just scratching an itch for me. Wan Jingang. Li Zixuan was not angry. He said with a smile, this marquis goal is not to make you feel pain. This marquis wants you to experience the loss of life unknowingly. In the end, you won't even have the strength to open your eyes. During this process, you can't do anything. You can only wait for death slowly. Wan Jingang trembled. It was obvious that he had begun to feel fear in his heart. The soldier next to him saw that the light yellow rubber hose was instantly dyed dark red. Immediately after, there was a drip sound and blood slid into the wooden bucket. Go and get a few de Tang daily for this marquis. This marquis will read the newspaper here today while admiring how this Wan Jingang is drain dry. Li Zixuan forcefully endured the disgust in his heart and ordered. In fact, he himself was a little scared when he heard such deliberately scary, perverted words. But in order to make Wan Jingang speak the truth, he could only suffer himself. Roar, Marquis Yong, and kill me if you dare. What kind of hero are you to use such despicable means? Wan Jingang couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine when he thought of how all the blood in his body was about to be drained dry and how there was a person admiring the process at the side. He only wished for a quick death now. The soldier of the right marquis household looked at Li Zixuan as if he was looking at a monster and thought, is this still the great philanthropist Marquis Yong, and that everyone praises? Why does he look like a demon that just came out of hell? Just as the soldier was about to give Li Zixuan the newspaper, he suddenly felt his sleeve being pulled by someone. He lowered his head and saw that it was Li Zixuan who had pulled him. He was bewildered and was about to ask when he saw Li Zixuan shove a ball of paper into his hand with lightning speed and make a shushing gesture. The soldier was also a quick-witted person. He quickly nodded and retreated. Commandant Zhou, Marquis, what's written on it? Tell me quickly. In a side hall of the Wu Marquis household, the soldier who previously served Li Zixuan was scratching his ears and cheeks as he surrounded a middle-aged man and asked anxiously. Looking at him, he was obviously illiterate. The note Li Zixuan passed him earlier was really a waste. The general usually tells us to read more books when we have time. Shun Siggy, you just don't listen. The middle-aged man, surnamed Zhou, pointed at the soldier and grumbled. But grumbling was grumbling. He still started to help Shun Siggy read the contents of the note. A jug of water, a funnel, and 2 soldiers? Shun Siggy, are you sure this is the note Marquis gave you? The content of the note was very simple. Commandant Zhou finished reading it very quickly, but he didn't quite understand the contents of the note. Shun Siggy frowned and thought for a while, then said excitedly, I understand. Thank you, Commandant Zhou. With that, he ran off like a wisp of smoke. Drip, 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 drip. In a dark room, the sound of water dripping could be heard from time to time. A young man sat at the door, calmly flipping through the latest issues of the Tang Daily. His face would occasionally reveal a smile. It could be seen that he was in a good mood. But the burly man who was hung on the beam was not in a good mood. His face was pale. Because he wanted to break free, his wrists and ankles were left with deep purple marks. His lips were dry. He didn't shout, because he had shouted for a long time, but it was useless. The young man was unmoved by his shouts, but it couldn't be said that he was completely unmoved. When he cursed, the young man would fiercely kick him in the stomach. It was so painful that he couldn't even breathe. Marquis, it's already noon. Why don't you go and have your meal first? I'll help you watch. When it was close to noon, Shun Siggy ran over and asked carefully. Li Zixuan put down the newspaper and replied, No need. Go to Drunken Immortal Restaurant and give me a plate of lion's head, a plate of fried bean sprouts, and a small pot of immortal drunken wine. This marquis will eat here for lunch. Let shopkeeper Liu prepare a few more portions, and let the brothers on duty in the Wu Ho government have a taste. Shun Siggy said in fear and trepidation, Oh, Marquis, you're too kind. The brothers are on duty. How can they drink? Li Zixuan raised his eyebrows in surprise. He secretly thought that the military discipline here was quite strict. He waved his hand and said, Then bring more food over. Treat it as this Marquis's reward to the brothers. Thank you, Marquis. And as for this Wan Jinggang, don't let him eat for lunch. Based on the speed of his bleeding, he should be able to bleed out by tonight. Letting him eat would be a waste. You, Marquis Yong, and you're too much. Ever since Wan Jinggang was caught yesterday morning in Wuhou government, he had not eaten a single bite of food, and after going through Li Zishuan's torture, he felt that he was really exhausted. Hearing Li Zishuan's words, his lungs were about to explode. Ignore him. Go quickly. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said. Shen Sigi obeyed and left. In the afternoon, the military officials and soldiers on duty in the right Wuhou government were considered to have freeloaded a big meal. The Drunken Immortal restaurant's top-quality food and dishes, they usually could not bear to eat a plate of it. But now they could eat heartily. In a moment, the entire Wuhou government was filled with the aroma of food. Wan Jinggang, who was starving in the aroma of the food and wine, felt that death was better than living. Every day felt like a year. Marquis, your subordinate heard a news outside. It said that the Chui family donated 2,000 strings of coins to the Nguyen Tang Foundation. Hey, looks like they are starting to give in. Li Zishuan invited Shen Sigi to have lunch at the entrance of the little black room. During the meal, Shen Sigi smiled and said a piece of news. Wan Jinggang heard this and could not help but frown deeply. Li Zishuan seemed to sigh carelessly and said, Everyone thinks that the Chui family is high above and will never fall. Hee. Let's wait and see. Let's not talk about that. This Drunken Immortal is still the best. TSK. Even an immortal would not exchange it. Gugu. While Li Zishuan was enjoying the food and wine, Wan Jingang's stomach started growling. Li Zishuan smiled at the two soldiers who were standing beside Wan Jinggang and doing unknown things. Come. The two of you, take turns to eat. Just keep an eye on him and don't let him commit suicide by biting his tongue. The two of them looked at each other. Seeing Shen Sigi nodding at them, they replied, Thank you, Marquis. Thus, only the sound of chewing and the very rhythmic dripping sound was left in the room. The starving Wan Jinggang was even more tormented by these two sounds. His arms and legs had already lost feeling. It was probably because he had lost too much blood. If he had a knife in his hand at this moment, his first reaction would not be to slash at Li Zishuan, but his own neck. In the afternoon, after some time, the dripping sound suddenly stopped. Li Zishuan raised his head and said, What's wrong? Did he bleed dry so quickly? The two of you quickly press on his arm and help him squeeze. Maybe he can squeeze out some blood. Shen Sigi, help me get another pot of wine. How can there be no wine for such an elegant thing? Ha! Wan Jingang's face turned even paler. He roared with his already hoarse voice. Lunatic! You are the devil. I beg you to kill me. You want to die? How can it be so easy? Your blood hasn't been drained yet. Li Zishuan laughed. Chapter 1090. Hearing Li Zishuan suddenly ask for wine, Shen Sigi was stunned at first. But after seeing Li Zishuan give him a meaningful look, he instantly understood and hurriedly left to carry out the order. Not long after, Shen Sigi brought over a pot of wine for Li Zishuan, and the other two martial marquis had already used all their strength to press down on Wan Jingang's arm. Immediately, the ticking sound in the room rang out again, and Wan Jingang's nightmare began again. Kill me. I beg you to kill me. If you're a man, then give me a quick death. I beg you. His mouth kept repeating these words in a low voice. The heavens had pity on him. He had walked the Jianghu for so many years. What kind of injuries had he not suffered? He had long seen through life and death, but this kind of waiting for death, this kind of torture to his soul and his body, he really could not stand it. At this time, a quick death to him had already become an extravagant hope. Phew! The contents of these few newspapers are a little lacking. 5 in the afternoon, the sun was setting in the west. Li Zishuan stood up, sighed, and said as if he hadn't had enough. Wan Jinggang, this marquis will give you one last chance. If you are willing to speak honestly, this marquis will give you a way out and ensure your safety. If you are not willing to speak, then this marquis will leave now, and tomorrow the people of Wu Ho government will send you, who is on your last breath, to the Supreme Court. TSK, TSK. I reckon that by that time, you will become a dried corpse. Do you know what is a dried corpse? Just like a dried fish. Li Zixuan looked at Wang Jinggang and said in a cold tone. After a day of torture, Wang Jingyang's spirit was already on the verge of collapse, and Li Zixuan's last words was the straw that broke the camel's back, causing his face to be filled with fear, and he shook his head vigorously and said, "No, I don't want to become a dried corpse. I don't want to become a dried corpse. I'll speak. I'll speak. What you want to know? I'll tell you everything." Li Zixuan laughed, and his heart heaved a sigh of relief. He sat down again and said, "Good. A wise man submits to circumstances. If you had cooperated earlier, you wouldn't have suffered so much, right? Marquis Yong, and you pull out the needle first, otherwise I will really turn into a mummy." Wang Jinggang said with trembling lips. "No rush, no rush. This marquis knows what to do. Answer a few of my questions first. You? Ask away. What did you do before?" "I used to be a bandit in the Qinling Mountains, and then I became a blacksmith." "When did you enter the Chui family?" "For years, no. It should be 5 years ago. I heard that the Chui family was recruiting a large number of pugilistic experts, so I went to try my luck. In the end, old Master Chui took a liking to me, so I became the Chui family's guard." "Then have you heard of a maidservant named Nian? Hearing this question, Wang Jinggang was stunned. His face was once again filled with fear, and he said in a trembling voice, How do you know her name? Could it be that the female ghost is still lingering around?" "Cut the crap. Let me ask you, how did Nian die?" Li Zixuan scolded coldly. She was raised into a human swine by Madame, and she was tortured to death." Wang Jinggang said the answer with a trembling voice. Sure enough, Li Zixuan heard, and the cup in his hand was crushed into pieces with a bang. "Then tell me, why did Nianyu's parents report it to the authorities?" Li Zixuan asked again. Wang Jinggang thought for a moment and replied, "As far as I know, Nianyu's parents sold her to the Chui family a long time ago, and they rarely had contact with each other. After Nianyu's death, the family head ordered people to send 100 strings of cash to Nianyu's parents. It was said that their daughter was pregnant with the Chui family's flesh and blood, but she unfortunately died in childbirth and was buried in the Chui family cemetery. Nianyu's parents didn't suspect much and accepted the fact that Nianyu had passed away." "Humph. 100 strings of cash? Madame Chui is a good-for-nothing. This Chui Shanfu is also a good-for-nothing. Wang Jinggang, you're loyal to such a master. I don't know if you'll feel ashamed after you die." Li Zixuan heard and sneered. Wang Jinggang couldn't help but lower his head at this moment and kept silent. Li Zixuan continued, "How did the Chui family deal with Nianyu's corpse in the end? I presume that with the couple's behavior, they definitely wouldn't bury her in the Chui family cemetery, right?" There was no answer to this question in the information provided by Pang Feiji. "Marquis guessed correctly. Nianyu's corpse was buried in the 10-mile slope outside the city." Wang Jinggang replied, "Are you sure? If there's half a lie, I will not only turn you into a human swine, but also cut you into pieces. Everything I said is true." Li Zixuan's mood suddenly became heavy. "Apart from this matter, has the Chui family done any other heinous things in recent years?" After a long pause, Li Zixuan asked again. "Marquis, this I can't remember clearly." Wang Jinggang thought for a while and finally replied, "Humph. Then let me ask you, how much fertile land has the Chui family seized in recent years?" Li Zixuan asked with a cold face. Wang Jinggang was silent for a long time and replied, "The Chui family has seized a lot of fertile land in recent years, but I can't say exactly how much, but it should be more than 100,000 mu. Do you know all the illegal things the Chui family has done in Hunan province?" "This I know a little. Tell me everything you know. Don't leave out a single thing." The interrogation went on until the third quarter of the evening. The Chui family's old debts were gradually dug out. Although these were not all of the Chui family's evil deeds, But what Wan Jinggang said was enough to shock everyone. Encroaching on land, kidnapping women, forcing women into prostitution, oppressing the poor, and even robbing and killing people. The Chui family, who had been glorious for thousands of years, actually did all of these things in the dark. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were full of evil. If the Chui family is not destroyed, the heavens will not tolerate it. If the Wang family is not destroyed, the wrong souls will not be appeased. Shin Sigi, bring it over and let him sign it. Li Zishuan had always had a fire in his heart. Following Wan Jingang's narration, the fire in his heart burned brighter and brighter. But he did not lose his temper here. He wanted to wait until the Chui family was destroyed, then he would release it completely. Yes, Marquis. When Wan Jinggang confessed, Shun Sigi quickly found a document from the Wuhou government. So, Wan Jingang's confession was recorded. After all, there were no tape recorders or cameras in this era. They could only use pen and paper to record the criminal's confession. Marquis Yong, and you pull out the needle from my body, you can't go back on your words. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.